There'll be birthday parties again, play dates, and family gatherings. Our children will be able to
everyone, and we welcome you to tonight's Board of Commissioners call meeting. If you will, the meeting will be held on video conference again this time, and Henry TV will be streaming online and as well on Charter Spectrum 180 and Facebook Live. So at this time, what we will do is begin with an invocation. If you will join me, please. Heavenly Father, we just thank you again for another opportunity to serve you on this day. We do continue to pray for all of those who are being impacted by COVID-19, especially those families whose lost lives or those that are there in the hospitals or even recovering from home. We ask that you continue to be with those families, Lord God, who are also experiencing impacts with jobs and childcare, that you will continue to be a blessing to us, to offer wisdom and answers and solutions. And even in tonight's Board of Commissioners meeting, we ask for your will and your justice and your righteousness to prevail. And all that agree, please join me in saying amen. Thank you. We will now say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will now call tonight's Board of Commissioners meeting to order. We do have some announcements and some amendments to make to the agenda. The first announcement is that Planning and Zoning Matter RZ 20-01 with Mandalay Properties requesting a rezoning from residential agriculture, single-family residence for the property located south side of Dale and Mill Road in District 3 has been postponed. We also will have Planning and Zoning Matter, item RZ 20-01, that has been removed from the agenda. Regarding some amendments, we will have a resolution to approve the special tax districts that's going to be moved up before the millage rate items to item 5A. And then we're going to amend tonight's agenda to add item 7A, which are some resolutions regarding the CARES Act. And then we'll have another agenda amendment to add an item 7B resolution, which are improving agreements with Clayton State University, Mercer University, and Southern Crescent Technical College for student teachers to assist at a virtual learning center. And then I think Mr. Toussaint has another, I think I may have already covered it with item MC 20-02. Are there any other changes to the agenda that needs to be noted? Ms. Matthews.
Chair Wood, the removal of the MC 2002 Championship Martial Arts is also being removed by staff. The one you initially mentioned was the rezoning, but this is actually the modification that's being removed as well.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, okay. And that was actually item 6D. Okay, thank you for that clarification and correction. Are there any other changes or modifications to the agenda that was noted?
Yes, Chair Wood, this is Commissioner Clemens.
Yes.
Toussaint and Sherry, I need to discuss with you all about why the MC 20-02 was taken off. I was going to ask to table it anyway, but it's fine. I see. I'm hoping that it was because we need to discuss it more, but we can talk later. I just want to make sure that yeah, that's fine.
We'll follow up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I'm gonna just take a vote for these amendments separately, and then we'll vote for the changes to the agenda. So all those that were in favor, I have a motion to remove the planning and zoning items that were mentioned. Again, that's RZ 20-01 and also MC 20-02. Or do we have a motion to remove those from the agenda stated?
So move.
Okay, we have a motion. Okay, and I saw Commissioner Barham as a second. Any further discussion regarding those planning and zoning items to be removed? All in favor of removing those planning and zoning items, please signal by raising your hand. Okay, that looks to be a unanimous decision. Thank you. And then we had an amendment to actually move the special tax districts up before the millage rate items. I'm going to have a motion to approve that change. Okay, we have Commissioner Barron. Commissioner Thomas is a second. Any further discussion or comments? All in favor of that change, please signal by raising your hands. That is unanimous. And then we have an amendment to add the resolutions regarding the CARES Act. So if there are, do I have a motion to actually amend that to the agenda as well? See Commissioner Wilson. And a second by Commissioner Barham. Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor of that, the CARES Act's being added, the resolutions?
You got a discussion.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Thomas.
Yes,
This
my
is regarding the
discussion
CARES Act.
is, has that resolution been emailed to us? I'm looking at the 8 attachments that has been emailed to us, and I don't see that one. Was it emailed separately or what?
Okay. County Manager Matthews.
Commissioner Thomas, you actually went out towards the end. I think you asked, had everything been emailed to the board?
I'm looking at the 8 attachments and I don't see that one. Was it emailed separately or with that group?
Stephanie, can you confirm that those were all, were they emailed individually or separately? And I apologize, it was at the last
The
minute.
last one, the CARES Act. I don't see that one. I see the millage rate, the fire, police, special districts, unincorporated services, millage rate.
Commissioner
Something like-
Thomas, it
but
probably
I
was
don't see that
about
one.
5 minutes ago. Stephanie, can you confirm if that has been emailed out to the commissioners?
No, I just received it. They should have everything else in that one email, and he just sent that. I don't have a resolution. I have the one resolution for the CARES Act and the 2 agreements for the nonprofit agreement and the chambers agreement. Would you like me to send all those now in an email so they know they're coming?
Yes, please. And I think Commissioner Holmes may have a question as well.
I don't have any of those. Is she emailing that out now?
Yes, ma'am.
Was it emailed out earlier and I just not received it?
No, it's not Stephanie's fault. We actually have been working all day trying to get the agreements finalized. As I mentioned yesterday, I think I sent an email to the commissioners yesterday evening to be on the lookout for it because we have been working, trying to get everything finalized. Because we're under a very tight deadline, meaning August 31st to spend those funds, we weren't given a lot of window to move. And so as soon as we were able to capture the funding, we've been trying to get this finalized. So I will take full ownership of it not getting to the board prior to this meeting. But Stephanie did not have the information prior to the start of the meeting. We just literally finalized the document. But we're trying to move with it so that we can go ahead and secure the funding.
I'll have more questions later, but thank you.
No problem.
Okay,
Sure.
so thank you. Okay, so thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Commissioner Holmes. Yes.
Sure. I have not had the opportunity to read the email, nor do I know what this is all about. So can you give me a quick synopsis of what we're supposed to be voting on tonight?
Yes, sir. And so David Smith is scheduled to present it to the board, but it is a resolution that is going to authorize us to accept the federal treasury funds that was allocated to the state of Georgia and then subsequently allocated to Henry County in the amount of $8.5 million. We have already been able to draw down 30% of that 8.5, which equates to about $2.5 million. And now we have to go through the process to accept those funds. But it also includes language for us to enter into memorandum of understandings with the Henry County Chamber of Commerce and various nonprofits to serve as a pass-through for the allocation of funds. A certain percentage of the funds will be utilized, and those are the items that we're adding onto the agenda, Commissioner Holmes. But that's the short version, and I'll yield if you have questions, because I think I see you may have a question.
Yeah, I just want to know, have you guys worked on setting up any type of criteria for businesses to be allocated those funds?
Yes, sir. And let me.
Okay, and we're into discussion already, so what I think we should do is agree to whether or not we need to add it to the agenda for further discussion matters.
I have a discussion.
And then, excuse me, I'm speaking to Commissioner Holmes right now. But again, just because we're trying to determine whether or not you want to add it to the agenda for further discussions, so that it is placed on here for discussions purposes. So Commissioner Holmes.
Yeah, I would like to know more about it. I feel a little uncomfortable right now, adding it. And that's just me. It sounds like we're going to be voting to give the chamber, $2.5 million to allocate the funding to whoever they want, with no control on who gets the funding, with no criteria set or anything of that nature. So I'm a little concerned about that. I think I think it should be an opportunity for even businesses that have had a hardship that don't belong to the Henry County Chamber, but are Henry County businesses, to have an opportunity to access some of those funds as well. So I would like to table it and come back and talk about how we can maybe select put together some type of board or some type of committee that will be in charge of setting the criteria and picking various companies in the county that have had hardship.
Well, so thank you for your comment, and then I will open the floor again for a motion. Now I'll go to Commissioner Clemens for her comments. Commissioner Clemens.
Yeah, I would like to see us just have the resolution on to talk about accepting the funds and not dealing with the MOU and all that part of it, because I know the importance of us receiving the funds. I'm not comfortable with the whole thing, because basically you're asking us to add a resolution on to accept it, to approve MOUs. And I think that's what Commissioner Holmes was saying. That part should be separated from the federal funds and the urgency of us needing to accept funds.
Okay, all right. Any other questions or comments regarding the CARES Act? Okay, so regarding this agenda item, the floor is now open for a motion. Commissioner Wilson. Commissioner Wilson. You're muted, I'm sorry. You're still muted.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to make a motion to add it to the agenda on the CARES Act.
Okay, we have a motion to add the CARES Act with the resolutions. Can you clarify your motion, Commissioner Wilson? Because I know there's been two options discussed here, so please clarify your motion.
The motion is to add the CARES Act with the resolution to the agenda. That way, when we get to that, we can discuss it further on. So it has to be on the agenda for us to do that, correct?
That's correct. Okay, we have a motion to add the CARES Act with the resolutions as stated to the agenda. Is there a second? Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please raise by signaling, raising your hand. Okay, 3. Any opposed? Okay, 3. Okay, so that amendment is there. Is there a motion for another motion? The floor is now open. Commissioner Thomas.
I'd like to place a motion on the floor to add the CARES Act to the agenda for discussion only, without the other MOUs and other items attached to it for tonight.
Okay.
To accept the money, to accept the funds for the CARES Act as well, and for discussion without the other MOUs or other attachments to it.
Okay, so I think I understand your motion is to add the CARES Act to the agenda to accept the funds, but no MOUs. Is that correct, Commissioner Thomas?
Yes, for discussion,
Okay.
yes.
So we have a motion. Is there a second? Okay, Commissioner Holmes, a second. Any further discussion?
Have a discussion.
Commissioner Clemens, yes.
Chair, I have a question. Can we accept the funds without having the use in there? Can we have the resolution to accept the funds without discussing the use?
we can accept the funds, but we can't proceed with anything until after those MOUs are in place.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay.
Okay.
And we can't use those funds until we have some agreements in place, Commissioner.
We understand that. Yep.
I understand that.
Can I get clarification on one thing, Commissioner Thomas? There are two sets of MOUs on the agenda. One is with the chamber and nonprofits that Mr. Smith is presenting, and then one Ms. Senio is presenting with Southern Crescent Technical College, Clayton State, and Mercer for the virtual learning. I would respectfully ask that the board at least allow us an opportunity to present those MOUs, as it will impact services that we're trying to provide to our employees in lieu of the school system not being open for students to attend in person.
And Ms. Matthews, that was I was going to come to that MOU on that CARES Act. That was a separate resolution. This was regarding the acceptance of the grant, the approving of the usage of the fund balance, and regarding the MOUs with the chamber and nonprofit. And right now, the motion on the table is to accept the grant, of course, without any MOUs at this time. So that's the motion on the floor. And then we'll come to that one on the Clayton State University and others. But that's regarding the virtual learning, that's a separate one. Okay, so any further discussion on the motion that's on the table? Yes, Commissioner Clemens.
I'm confused now because which one are we dealing with? And we can't do the one with the MOUs to Clayton State because that would be a percentage of those funds. And if those funds need to be used somewhere else, like extra COVID testing sites, we would have already voted to use those funds for a virtual learning center. So I don't think that we can do anything except MOU to discuss the total 8-point-some odd million and talk about the best place for all of the funds. So basically, you've often made a decision that a percentage of those funds will go to the virtual learning center without us discussing other use.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Matthews.
So we're talking about $8.5 million. And right now, the virtual learning centers is probably going to be less than $1 million in terms of a 12-week span. We don't have time at this point, if the board doesn't act on the virtual learning centers, because school will start on Monday, to provide any assistance or resources to those employees that have already tried to work towards using the virtual learning center. So yes, you are correct that a percentage of the CARES funding would be allocated for that use, but the resolution that Mr. Smith has in front of you all is just a resolution authorizing the acceptance of the grant funds and the use of fund balance. Those resolutions are not moving you all to approve those MOUs. So I think that's where some clarification is needed. That is an attachment. So if you all decide we want to accept the funds, we want to utilize, and we're going to have to move fund balance monies because this is reimbursable. We have to spend the funds before we receive reimbursement back. If the board decides we don't want to enter into an MOU, there's no harm, no foul with the resolution that you all have. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Well, let me clarify as well, because we're speaking about the agenda. And there are two CARES Act related resolutions that's being discussed. Item 7A is the resolution regarding the acceptance of the CARES Act funding grant, the approval use of the fund balance. And I understand now that the motion on the table is not to address any MOUs with nonprofits or the chamber. Item 7B is also related to the CARES Act, but that related to the agreements or the MOUs with the post-secondary colleges, but it was relating to the virtual learning center. So right now we're addressing the resolution regarding the acceptance of the fund grant. So that's the one that we're voting on to whether or not to add it to the agenda or not. So we've got a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion about that? Okay, again, the motion is to entertain the discussion about the resolution to accept the CARES Act grant and to approve the use of fund balance. And that is the motion that's on the table right now. Okay, so we had a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? All in favor, please raise by signaling your hand. Okay, so I see two. Okay, those that would oppose, please raise by signaling your hand. 4. Okay, so we have at this point still no motion to actually add the CARES Act to the agenda. And I do want to remind our board that right now There's $8.5 million or 2.5 that is having to be discussed. We have to expend those funds by August 31st. So if there's not an agreement today, those funds would, again, we'll have another lag of time. And then we'll have to come back for another discussion at some point in time to discuss whether or not we're going to accept the $2.5 million, which is the 30% of the $8.5 million. So is there a motion that this board would accept? That again would come to some agreement of the majority to help at least accept these grant funds and to begin the logistics of. Yes, Commissioner Thomas.
Madam Chair, let's try again, because we do want to accept these funds.
That's exactly right.
We want to accept the funds tonight under a discussion, adding no MOUs to that, adding no fund balance requirements to it, just discussion and accepting the funds tonight. I think we can agree to that.
Okay, that is the motion, which is similar to what we just voted on. We have a motion to discuss the acceptance of the grant. Correct? Okay, Commissioner Thomas, state your motion just one more time because I don't want to re-confuse it.
My motion is to add to the agenda the CARES Act to accept the funds allocated to Henry County with no attachment discussions, no MOU discussions, no use of funds discussion, and no use of fund balance, just to accept the money as given to Henry County.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any discussion or further comments? Okay, all those are in favor, please do raise by signal or raising your hands, and those in favor of that motion. Okay, we will see 4. Okay, so any opposed to that motion? Please, 2. Okay, so we will add to the agenda the discussion about the CARES Act acceptance of the grant, but again, no discussion regarding fund balance or MOUs. Okay, so that will be added to actual item 7A. Okay, we'll now go to 7B. 7B, again, is the resolution to discuss the agreements with the post-secondary colleges regarding the Assistance for a Virtual Learning Center. The floor is now open for a motion to accept that resolution. We see Commissioner Wilson, Commissioner Barham as a second. Any further discussion or comments? All in favor of that motion, please raise by signaling your hand. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 5. Okay, any opposed?
We didn't do discussion.
Okay, well, we can go back. We had a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Thank you. Chair, can we get an estimated amount? And I think that you can pull that amount based on what we charge for summer camps and to run our camps is similar to the same. Are we going to do the virtual learning centers for the whole school year? Are we doing them just to school start? We have to have that information. I think it's a great idea, but we do need to have some form of an amount for that.
Well,
Because
let me interrupt. This is to discuss whether or not it's going to be added to the agenda for all of the details that you're expecting and just asked for. So again, this is to add it to the agenda or to not add it to the agenda for further discussion with details. We are discussing the agenda right now.
this is a discussion that I'm asking the county manager to make sure that she provides for us so that when it comes up, that we'll have the information. So the discussion is, Sherry, that we would need that information. And also we need to make sure that, I had my train of thought to the chair, just interrupted me, but that's what we would need. And if we can get that information by the time it comes around to the vote. And is that possible for us to be able to do that?
Yes, ma'am. We have it ready to present to you all this evening.
Okay.
Okay, so again, any further discussion, Commissioner Holmes?
Sherry, do we have one overall invoice, or do we have an invoice from each individual college?
It will be one MOU for each individual college, Commissioner Holmes.
Okay, are the amounts the same across the board?
In terms of, yes, sir. So the salaries that will be paid will be the same hourly rate. I think for the students, it's one rate, and for the retired educators, it may be a different rate.
Okay, again, I will state again, this is to discuss whether or not this will be added to the agenda, and those are the details that would be provided. So thank you, Commissioner Holmes, for at least posing that question ahead of time. We are now again discussing whether to add it to the agenda for further discussion. So at this time, are there any further discussions regarding this motion to add it to the agenda? Okay, seeing none. The floor again is now open. I think I lost track of myself in the midst of it. We had a motion to add it to the agenda. Okay, County Clerk, can you restate again where we were with that motion so I can make sure we've got it correct for the records?
Chair, you have a motion from Commissioner Wilson to approve and a second from Commissioner Barham, and we're now ready for the final vote.
Great, and thank you. So we were in this discussion period. We had a motion and a second. So now all those in favor, please do raise by signaling or raising your hand. Okay, that looks to be unanimous. So that will be added to the agenda for further discussion. Okay, so at this time, there were the amendments that were made. The planning and zoning items as stated were removed. We did move the special tax districts up to item 5A, right before the millage items. We did add the amendment to add the CARES, to accept the CARES Act only. That was amended. And then, of course, the discussion to add the resolution regarding the post-secondary colleges and universities to assist regarding a virtual learning center. So at this time now, we'll accept a motion to accept the agenda as stated with those changes. Okay, we have Commissioner Wilson. Is there a second? Commissioner Thomas? Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please do signal by raising your hands. Okay, thank you. Our agenda has been amended as stated. Okay, we will now move into our items regarding our tax commissioner. So we are again did agree to move the special service tax districts up on the agenda. So we're now inviting up our county attorney, Mr. Jock Stetter, to begin that presentation. Okay. We cannot hear you. Okay. Okay,
Can you hear me now?
now we can. Thank you.
Okay, so as, that's fine. Is it displayed? Okay. So as I've presented previously, we are proposing today for the board to approve a number of service districts, special service districts, and we need to do those before we adopt the millage rate, because you'll actually be adopting millage rates for each one of these districts. So the first one for you to consider would be the creation of the fire protection district. And as you will all recall, the fire protection district covers all of Henry County, unincorporated county, including cities of Stockbridge, Hampton, and Locust Grove. So, good. Okay, so what I'm requesting is that you go ahead and approve a resolution to create that special district for the provision of fire protection services in the unincorporated Henry County and within the cities of Hampton, Locust Grove, and Stockbridge.
Okay, well, we've heard the presentation of that special service tax district. Are there any questions from the board? I cannot see the, okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board? Okay, Commissioner Thomas.
Have the rates been set for this special service district? And have, can you share with us what that would be?
I believe they have been. I don't know the rates for each. I think Sherry can come up and give you those rates. You'll be adopting those next when Mr. Harris makes his presentation, but I think we have those rates.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have the resolution. We need to know what it's going to cost, what's going to cost them, I guess.
So Commissioner Thomas, for the Police Protection District,
Fire.
oh, fire, I'm sorry, I missed it. The millage is going to be 1.105 mils.
Thank
Get that up and up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions?
I have a question, Chair Wood.
Yeah, Commissioner Clement.
Sherry, was there a handout given or something given with the rates on it? I know that we had it at the last meeting. Is that the same handout or was there a different handout given today?
It's modified some, and that's actually part of Mr. Harris's presentation, so he'll have that in his presentation.
But was there a hard copy handout given out? Chair Wood, you have a hard copy handout that was given to you?
It was emailed to all of the Board of Commissioners from the county clerk. So that was distributed to all commissioners. So this is what I printed out. Yes, ma'am.
Where is that email? Ask Stephanie where that email is.
County clerk, if you can kind of state what time you sent that out. And I know that there was one sent, I think, yesterday, and then there was a little update that came today.
Sorry, I had to look at it. It came at 10:58 a.m.
Maybe I'm the only commissioner that didn't get it. Commissioner Thomas, did you get it?
I can forward it to you again right now.
Okay, but let's do a roll check. So District 1, did you receive the millage rate information? I'm sorry.
I did.
Okay, District 2, said that you did. District 3?
Yes, it's in my book.
Okay, District 4? District 4, did you receive the millage rate information? You're muted, so I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
I was checking the email. What time did she say she sent?
County Clerk, can you state again when you received, submitted those?
Sorry, 10:58 a.m. today.
Thank you.
Okay, District 5, did you receive it? I'm sorry, Commissioner Holmes, your mic is muted. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
it was sent at the last minute, so I haven't had the opportunity to review my emails today. Been working all day.
Thank you, sir. Okay. So County Clerk, have you resubmitted that for those that need to check your email?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so what is it possible? I know we're discussing, going to speak about the millage rates after Mr. Jockstetter speaks, but is there a way that we can at least present the slide that shows what the proposed 2020 millage rates will be by the special service districts in the chart, so that it's also made for public record?
Chair Wood, I wasn't finished. Can I finish?
Sure, you may.
I have the email that was sent at 10:45, Stephanie. What I don't, and I see the resolutions. What I didn't have was the rate package and the presentation that Chair Wood has on her desk. I didn't have that. And it's not in the book. So that's why I was asking. But if he's going to present that or show it to us, then that's fine. But I was asking the county manager, how can we get the copy of what the chair has?
Yeah, and again, just as a statement, this was, it may have come from, this is the millage rate information that has been presented, and I can't remember if it came from Ms. Braun or from Mr. Harris, but it's the information that has been submitted over the last couple of days.
So Commissioner Holmes and Commissioner Thomas, you don't have that package, but okay, thank you.
So Commissioner.
Now, let's clarify that. No, let's stop. Let's clarify. We do, this information that I'm looking at was distributed to each of the Board of Commissioners. So Ms. Braun, if you can confirm, and if you want me to hold up what I'm looking at this chart, which is actually the millage rate presentation, which has been presented at each of the millage rate hearings that we've had. So am I misstating that? Someone please correct that.
You have the same, I sent the same thing to everyone, and I think you just printed your copies out.
So thank you. Okay, so the question is, what do we need to do to at least bring the commissioners up to speed Is this a time where the basic question is, can we show the millage rates by special service district so that everyone is on the same page?
So we're going to get Mr. Harris's presentation. What you might want to do is let Mr. Harris make his presentation first.
Okay,
Include all of the various millage rates. And then we could vote first on creating the service districts. And then after you create the service districts, vote on the millage rates, both for the countywide millage rate and for each of the service districts. That might be a way to make sure you get all the information in an order that gives the board some comfort.
well, very good, and I think that's good. So the floor is actually open for a motion now to amend the agenda to allow Mr. Harris to come and present the millage rate information, and then after that, we'll come back to the vote regarding the special service tax districts, and then, of course, the millage rate hearing, and then the millage rate adoption vote. So that is the recommendation on the table. Is there a motion to accept that? Okay, we see a motion from Commissioner Wilson. Is there a second? Okay, Commissioner Thomas, any further discussion or comments? Okay, all in favor of that order to amend the agenda, please raise by signaling your hand. Okay, I didn't see Commissioner Thomas' hand. Are you okay, Commissioner Thomas, or you're opposing that? Okay, all right.
We're getting
So
a delay in my response. And sorry, Madam Chair, for some reason, there is a delay
Okay,
in you seeing my responses. So please be aware of that before you go too far
okay,
along, okay? I'm
I
not
sure will. Thank you. I sure will. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so we have now modified the agenda, so we'll allow Mr. Harris now to come and make the presentation regarding the millage rate.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. Let me jump right into it. I know you have a long agenda tonight, so let me jump right into the presentation.
Mhm.
Make sure I got the right one. Okay, so just again, quickly, what we're talking about tonight, just our millage rate discussion. We've discussed this, this represents the third of our 3 public hearings. Millage rate is simply the tax rates that are used to calculate our local property taxes. We use 2 different values to get to this number. And those are our fair market value and our assessed value. The fair market value is simply the value that's determined by our tax commissioner's office. The tax commissioner's office mails out assessment notices in April or May. So it's a little bit later this year because of everything that went on with the coronavirus. But taxpayers still had the full 45 days to appeal the value to the Board of Assessors. The assessed value simply represents 40% of the fair market value. So once the fair market value is determined, that number is multiplied by 40%, and that gives you your assessed value, which is the value at which you are taxed at. So again, quickly calculating the county, this is the county portion of the property tax bill. That would be, again, the assessed value, which is at 40% of the fair market value, minus any exemptions that may apply. That multiplied by your millage rate will give you the amount of taxes due. What I've done here on this chart is simply give 2 examples side by side, showing a property valued at $200,000. Again, fair market value $200,000, which gives a assessed value of $80,000. Again, 40% of the $200,000. And the example number 1 contemplates a home that has a homestead exemption, the standard homestead exemption of L1, which would reduce that assessed value by $15,000, which would give you a taxable value of $65,000. That times your millage rate. And again, for the purpose of this example, we use the same millage rate that we've had for the last 4 years, 12.773. This extended out with the decimal points. So it's 0.012733. That millage rate times your assessed value gives you a taxable amount of $827 in county taxes. Again, that's based on the standard L1 exemption. Using that same property without an exemption, It'd be the same $200,000 fair market value times 40% to give you your assessed value. So that full 80% times the same millage rate, 12.773, would give you a county tax due of $1,018. So a difference of roughly about $190, $191. Typically, we tell people, what is that standard exemption worth? And as you can see, again, in general terms, ballpark about $200 for the standard exemptions. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the other exemptions that may apply. So that difference can certainly increase depending on which types of exemptions you're eligible for. Common question we also get is, what happens with my tax bill? What happens to my tax bill if the property value goes up and the millage rate remains the same, which is what's being contemplated this current year. So if we see a property value increase, again, using the same previous example from 200,000, say it goes up by 10% to 220,000, you would take that new fair market value of 220,000 times your 40% to give you an $88,000 assessed value. $88,000 times your millage rate would give you a county taxable number of $1,120.50. And again, that would be for a non-homesteaded property. That it equates to an increase of roughly $100. Again, so a 10% increase on your property in this case would equate to about $100 increase for a non-homesteaded property. And I say non-homesteaded because if the property did have a homestead, then they could be eligible for the frozen provision. So if it was homesteaded, you would not see an increase in your county taxes because of the frozen exemption if the base value of the property is less than the current assessed value. And again, we'll talk about that in just a few more slides. And again, it should be noted that the frozen exemption does not apply to school taxes or improvements made to house or additional land acquired. So that 10% increase, that increase in the assessed value, you would be by the full millage rate for the school board for their tax millage. This just gives us a standard form that we use every year. Every year this gets updated based on what the exemption amounts are. The standard L1 has been pretty set for $15,000 for the county and $4,000 for the school maintenance and operation for your standard L1. When you reach age 62, you get into your age exemptions. Age 62, you give an exemption, a further exemption increases from $4,000 up to $20,000 for your schools. And at age 65, it increases again, age 68, and at age 70, you no longer are paying school taxes. Again, beginning at age 65, you also see an exemption with your water, the 2 mils from your water assessment as well. There are several other, as I mentioned, there are several other additional exemptions that can come into play: disability exemption, veterans disability exemption, the surviving spouse from armed conflict, the surviving spouse for a peace officer or firefighter, conservation, free port, forest, land protection, and as we previously mentioned, the frozen exemption, which there's a lot of conversation we had last year about this. I did want to add just another slide, just kind of delve a little bit more deeply into this. The frozen exemption came about in 2004 based on local legislation. Quite simply what was going on in 2004, land values in Henry County were increasing exponentially. And the Board of Commissioners at the time wanted to do something to kind of help some of our senior population to make sure that their property values didn't outpace what they were able to pay. So they put this provision in place. It includes only the primary residence and up to 5 contiguous acres of land, again, the land surrounding the house itself. The base year is a taxable year immediately preceding the taxable year in which the exemption is granted to the most recent property owner. In essence, that simply says if you were to apply today, the base year would be for 2020. Again, because you have to apply by the April 1 deadline. So in this case, your base year would defer to this current year. Exemption is automatically renewed from year to year so long as the resident occupies the residence as a homestead. So if you apply at age 50, you don't have to come back in every single year to go back and reapply for your frozen exemption. Homeowners pay on the base year value of the county and water portions of the tax bill, even if the value increases beyond the base year. So going back to the example we used with a $200,000 value would have increased by 10%. If homestead were in place and your base value was at the $200,000 value, then you would still be paying your county taxes based on 200,000 and not that additional increase of $10,000. So you can see how that can have a dramatic impact over the course of years on the reduction in the amount of county taxes that you end up paying. If the property value does decrease below the base year value, the homeowner would only pay based on the lower valuation. So and again, we'll have this information updated, uploaded onto the website so people can ask, but we often get a number of questions in regards to, am I receiving home frozen exemption? Typically, if you go on your tax bill and you're receiving that standard L1 exemption, and if that number is anything above 15,000, that additional represents the amount you're receiving in frozen exemption. So that's a good way to gauge whether or not to make sure that you are actually realizing that benefit. If not, I always encourage people to please call our office or reach out to the tax assessor's office, either one. One slide we always like to add is just kind of letting people know, give them an idea of where the taxpayers go, where the tax dollars go. As you can see by the pie chart above, the school maintenance and operations represents about 50% of all taxes collected. Again, that's that initial 20 mills that the school board has already passed again for this year. The next biggest chunk is for county government. That represents about 37%. Again, that contemplates the 12.733 mills that we've been fixed at for the last several years. And then there's a school bond, represents about 8% of all of our tax dollars. And again, those are for the items that go towards the building of new schools and school improvements. And lastly, the water authority bond, which represents 5% or 2 mills overall. Quickly, we'll talk just real quick about the digest process. This is an annual process that we have to go through prior to being able to put out our tax bills. It's a collaborative process, involves several different entities working together. The process starts with our tax assessor's office. We work hand in hand with them, compiling our list and compiling our assessment notices. Between the tax assessor's office and our office here. Then from there, we work with the Board of Education in the adoption of their millage. Obviously, you all as the Board of Commissioners when you adopt the millage here for the county, and as well as working in conjunction with each one of the cities as well. And then finally, all that information is forwarded to the Department of Revenue for final approval. The digest itself, it consists of a list of assessments and exemptions. Those consist of all the real and personal properties within the county, includes timber, mobile homes, motor vehicles, heavy-duty equipment, and public utilities. The key note here is that the digest itself must be approved by the state Department of Revenue before any tax bills can be mailed out. So it's critical that the process gets started on time and moves through each one of its steps in a timely manner. Again, so having those good working relationships with all those entities mentioned is critical to make sure everything happens in a timely way, because the bills must be received 60 days in advance of the due date. Henry County's due date has always been November 16th, and so we make it a point to have our bills mailed out by no later than September 1st to give ample time for that to happen. Now moving to the information you all were just discussing, the proposed 2020 millage rates. And again, this is going to tie into county attorney's presentation, which is coming up next. So what we looked at was changing the format slightly to come out and pull these special service districts out. And those represent fire, police, recreation, and those special districts just within the unincorporated area. As stated, that fire special service district is 1.105, police is 1.824, recreation, which is one that all the jurisdictions utilize, 0.685, and this one for unincorporated special service district, and that makes up just those items that are unique to here within the county, and that is consists of things like our GIS department, planning and zoning, building department, things of that nature, building planning and code enforcement services, which make up the 0.331. From that, we first had to establish our countywide based millage, which is the 8.788. All that applies to each one of the jurisdictions, unincorporated areas, as well as the incorporated cities. And then from there, we simply added on those if you are utilizing the county's special service district, then as Stockbridge does, then that millage would apply, as would the police and the recreation. In the case of the city of McDonough, they're only utilizing the recreation service district. So it's the 8.788 plus the 0.65, which gives a total county millage there of 9.473. So this blue column simply represents the total county millage. As stated, once all these items are added up for the unincorporated areas, it brings us to the 12.733 millage rate, which again, as stated, was the exact same millage rate that the county adopted last year. And this is what's being proposed. The other column simply represents some of the other millage items. Again, if there's a city millage, that's included here. The only city here that has a millage is the city of McDonough that adds their 3.8 mil. And then you have the school maintenance and operation, 20 mils across the board, the school bond mill of 3.628 across the board. And again, the water authority mill of 2.0 mils, which gives you a total millage rate of, again, for unincorporated Henry County, 38.361, which again was the same as last year, and the other subsequent millage rates as it applies to the other cities. One thing we did add, and I apologize, it came out a little bit fuzzy when we scanned it over, but just a couple of sample tax bills. And we're going to have this added onto the website so folks know. Everything is going to pretty much stay the exact same. Here, I think the first one on the left, again, probably a little bit tougher to read, but it's the unincorporated area. So you'll see the recreation SSD or special service district, the fire SSD, the police SSD, and the unincorporated SSD. That would be for the unincorporated areas. Moving to the one on the right, this is for the city of Hampton. And again, you'll only notice the recreation special service district and the fire special service district. Those are the only two that would apply in the city of Hampton. And again, it's the same for the city of Locust Grove. The first one on the left is city of Stockbridge, which again, the recreation service district, the fire service district, and the police service district. Again, all these in addition to the base county millage rate. And here in the city of McDonough, you'll have the city millage rate and the recreation. Again, those are the only two that would be included. So just to give folks an example of those additional line items that they'll see, they'll be reflected on their bills this year. Again, as stated, this is the third of 3 public hearings. And at some point later tonight, we'll move on to the adoption of the millage rate itself. Madam Chair, happy to take any questions that the board may have.
Well, we thank you, Mr. Harris, for that. So are there any questions from the board? I know we're gonna have to remove the screen share to see that we can acknowledge everyone. Okay. Are there any questions from the board? I would just like to make a comment. I think this new special service tax district makes things much simpler. And it is good to see that it's done by the districts as noted. So I commend those who've worked hard to bring this to this point, because the previous format, in my opinion, was a bit confusing. And this one makes it much simpler as well. So thank you again for the work done on that. Okay. So at this time, we're going to invite up the county attorney again to speak about the special service tax district resolution. Okay.
So good evening again. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint presentation. Oh. Great. Okay. So
and as you're speaking, County Attorney, can I clarify, you're going to go through each special district and you want each to be voted upon separately? Is that the understanding for it?
That's right. We're going to create each one separately.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the first one again is the fire protection district. And if you'll see, it covers all of the gray areas, which is the unincorporated areas, plus the cities of Stockbridge, Hampton, and Locust Grove. And it does reflect the relative millage rate of 1.105. And I want to be cautious to make sure we match the millage rate, and that does reflect the fire millage rate. So that is how the board will create this millage rate. And so there is a resolution for you to consider, which will create the special district. You're not assessing the tax yet. You won't do that. You won't impose the millage rate until after the public hearing. But this will create the special fire district throughout the county as shown on the map.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, not seeing any. So now the floor is open for a motion. I see Commissioner Wilson as a motion, Commissioner Clemens as a second. Any discussion? Okay, not seeing anything. All in favor, please signal by raising your hands. Okay, thank you. Okay, so that looks to be unanimous. Thank you. And that was for the fire district, so thank you.
Okay, and I'm going to share the screen now on the police district. So the next district that you would consider creating is the Police Protection District. That district, as we've discussed a number of times, covers unincorporated Henry County and the city of Stockbridge. And the millage rate that you'll consider adopting later for the Special Police Service District will be 1.824. So we'll be asking you to adopt a resolution creating the special district for police protection services in an unincorporated Henry County and the city of Stockbridge.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, not seeing anything. Okay, now the floor is open for a motion to accept. I saw Commissioner Clemens, then Commissioner Wilson. There is a second. Okay, any discussion? All in favor, please again, raise your hands. Okay, that is unanimous. Thank you. And that was for the police district, special district. Thank you.
That's correct. And the next district is the Recreation District. That district covers the entire county, including each one of the cities. The anticipated millage rate for that district is 0.685 mils. And we'll be asking you to approve a resolution creating the Recreation Service District in the unincorporated areas of the county and the cities of Hampton, Locust Grove, McDonough, and Stockbridge.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the commissioners? Okay, seeing none, the floor is now open for a motion to accept. Okay, I saw Commissioner Thomas, then Commissioner Barnes as a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, that looks to be unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, and the final district for your consideration is the Unincorporated Services District. And that includes the services that are provided only in the unincorporated areas, which is the GIS, services, building permits and inspections, planning and zoning, and animal control. And again, because it's the unincorporated district, that service district only covers the unincorporated areas of the county. And that millage rate will be 0.331 applied to residents or property within that district. And we'll be asking you to adopt a resolution creating the special district for the provision of services in the unincorporated area.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, the floor is now open for a motion to approve. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Thomas and a second by Commissioner Barnes. Any further discussion, questions, or comments? All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? I'm sorry, I didn't get a head count of everything, and I know I was trying to slow down. Again, all in favor, please raise your hand, please. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. That is unanimous. So thank you, sir. Okay, so at this time, we will begin the public hearing for the millage rate discussions. So at this time, County Clerk, were there anyone that signed up to speak during the public comment aspect of this?
No, ma'am, there's not.
Okay. So again, for the record, are there anyone that signed up to speak regarding the millage rate FY 2020-21 public hearing?
No.
Okay, thank you. So that does conclude our public hearing for the FY 2021 millage rate. So at this time now, we will move to the adoption of the FY 2021 millage rate. I'll see, are there any additional presentation comments from the county manager or the tax commissioner or anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I assume not so. So the floor is now open for a motion regarding the adoption of the FY 2021 millage rate. Commissioner Clemens has made a motion. Is there a second? Commissioner Thomas made a second. Are there any discussions or comments? Okay, all in favor, please do raise your hand. Okay, Commissioner Holmes, okay. So again, that looks to be unanimous. Thank you. So that does conclude our discussion on the special service tax districts, the millage rate, and the adoption of the millage rate. So again, we'll now move into the planning and zoning matters. Thank you, Mr. Harris, for joining us this evening as well. So we'll move to our first planning and zoning item. It is MC 20-01 in District 3 with the SK Property Holdings. And it is a request to add additional uses to the properties located on the north side of Jonesboro Road across from this intersection at Mount Carmel. So at this time, we'll invite up Mr. Stacey Jordan Rudisill to make the presentation.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Good evening.
So this item before you had been decided on May the 19th. And at that time, the Board of Commissioners approved this request with 5 conditions. And these 5 conditions are listed in the resolution in your exhibit books. Staff is recommending approval of these 5 conditions. So the request before you tonight, we're basically recommending that the board simply confirm the action that was taken on May the 19th. Madam Chair, I'd be pleased to answer questions.
Okay, are there any questions before we begin the public hearing aspect? Okay, I'm seeing none. So at this time, a total of 10 minutes will be granted to anyone wishing to speak in favor of, and likewise 10 minutes allotted to anyone wishing to speak in opposition. Has anyone signed up or present to speak regarding in favor of at this time? Is there anyone there? I need someone to confirm. And again, this is the time when the applicant is also welcome to come up to speak.
Stacey, do you have a list of the, Cara said there was no one signed up to speak in opposition, but is the applicant not there to speak?
Stephanie, I'm not sure about the applicant.
Okay.
I believe Steve Moore signed up to speak during this one. And I think he is in the waiting room. If James can move him over as a panelist.
Madam Chair, we're checking the waiting.
There we go.
Okay. Okay, so welcome this evening. This is the portion of this public hearing that we're allowing those who speak in favor to speak. And again, up to 10 minutes will be given to that group to speak in favor of. So welcome this evening, Mr. Moore.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, and County
All right.
Clerk, someone, will you please confirm the time as we go through? So thank you. Okay, you may begin, Mr. Moore.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the
Good
board.
evening.
Sorry for the confusion trying to get in here. So Yeah, as Stacy mentioned, I think it's a fairly simple request. We're not really requesting anything different than what was originally proposed, with the exception of one item that I would like for the board to consider. And if I can share a document, I can, but it won't let me. But I'll try to explain. I showed in the last hearing a picture of this building, which is really intended to look like a commercial. Here I go. Let me flip to this screen here real quick. This is the building that we proposed during the last hearing. The current ordinance for self-storage warehouses has a 35-foot height limitation. The building that is proposed, which hopefully you all agree is a very nice looking building, has a 42-foot height to the top of the parapet that's indicated on the sketch. And all we would like is for maybe an additional condition or some modification of one of those conditions to allow this building to be constructed at that height, again, to follow the guidelines of the district and the provisions to allow Class A type architecture. And so if the board would consider some, the ability for that language to be modified to allow this image that you see in front of you to be built, we would like to request that. Short of that, I have no other presentation to make.
Okay, thank you. So again, is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
I do not have anyone else listed here.
Okay, thank you. So at this time now, we'll allow anyone wishing to speak in opposition. I think I heard a comment statement, but if you'll make it for the record, County Clerk or Planning and Zoning team, anyone wishing to speak in opposition, please come forward now.
There was no one to speak in opposition.
Okay, thank you. Well, this does conclude our public hearing aspect for this planning and zoning matter. So at this time, are there any questions or comments from the board? And I do not see Commissioner Thomas, so I hope she's okay. So at this time, are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, seeing none. The floor is now open for a motion.
Yes, Madam Chair. I would like to make a motion that we approve this request with the 5 conditions and add a 6th condition that says proposed building shall be a maximum of 45 feet in height, consistent with Exhibit A dated August 11, 2020.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Okay, we have Commissioner Wilson as a second. Any further discussion or comments? Okay, all in favor, please do signal by raising your hand. Okay, that will look to be unanimous, so thank you. All right, well, thank you. We will now move into the next public hearing, which is RZ 20-02. And this is Dr. Mayo's Health Investment requesting a rezoning from general commercial to office institution for properties located at 931 Rock Quarry Road in District 4 for an assisted living and hospice care facility. So again, we invite up Mr. Stacy Jordan Rudisill for that presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And we're working to share this screen.
Okay.
Thank you. Madam Chair, this item before you at this time is for a location that was formerly a hospice care facility. And in fact, it was built for this purpose. The property has been zoned C2 general commercial since 1996, and it received approval for a conditional use in 2006 for a hospice care facility. However, it had a zoning condition that said if that business ever vacated, that conditional use would expire. And that business did vacate, and that conditional use did expire. Our current Unified Land Development Code doesn't have the same provision for conditional use in the C2 zoning district. And institutional living is not a permitted use within the C2 zoning district. So the applicant is requesting a rezoning for this subject property from the current zoning of C2 to O&I, which would allow for the proposed hospice care facility to be reopened and also to add assisted living services. This OI request is supported by our future land use map. As I understand it, there would be no proposed redevelopment of the site. The current building would simply be reopened. Staff has evaluated the applicant's request. We do recommend approval with the following conditions, which very closely mirror the conditions that were part of the approval in 2016, however, removing the sunset provision. And I'd be pleased to answer questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any questions or comments from the board before we begin the public hearing? Okay, seeing none, we will now begin the public hearing for this rezoning matter, and 10 minutes will be granted to those wishing to speak in favor, including the applicant, and 10 minutes will be granted to a group of individuals wishing to speak in opposition. So at this time, we'll welcome those who are wishing to speak in favor to please come forward now.
Brian Douglas is signed up to speak in favor for the applicant, and I, James, can move him over as a panelist.
Okay, so we welcome up, I heard Mr. Brian Douglas, but I wasn't clear about the second comment that you made, so. Okay.
James can move him over as a panelist. He can join.
Okay, so we've got two individuals. So we'll welcome up the first individual that would like to speak in favor to please come forward now.
Yes, I'm Brian Douglas. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank y'all for hearing case today. And I represent the property owner. They're leasing out the business to the company that's going to be running the assisted living and hospice care. So I'm just as an agent for the property owner, and I don't have anything to add to the what Mr. Jordan presented, other than just here to answer any questions that may come up.
Okay, well, thank you. We appreciate that.
I couldn't understand either. The second person was Miss Denise Durant. Is she online?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Douglas. We'll allow the county clerk or staff to identify the next person. Is she?
The list that planning and zoning sent me did not have her included on that list. It was just, Douglas Bryan.
But she's okay. Again, we'll move to the next person that's wishing to speak.
And Madam Chair, while we're waiting for the next person to be admitted from the waiting room, I'd just like to state for the record that the applicant did provide to us a list of 26 individuals that wish to express their support for this project.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, this is James from IT. I didn't hear the next person need to be brought in.
So County Clerk, can you restate that individual's name?
Chair, the only list that I received, they had to sign in pre-register with Horace Temple in Planning and Zoning, and the only name I have is Mr. Douglas that has already spoken. I don't have anybody else listed.
Okay, all right, thank you. And again, I understand that everyone, due to the virtual environment, was requested to pre-register. Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so that then, County Clerk, will you confirm that that does conclude everyone that was wishing to speak in favor before we move to those that were wishing to speak in opposition?
Yes, and there is nobody signed up to speak in opposition either.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, that does conclude our public hearing for this zoning matter. And so at this time, we'll see if there are any questions or comments from the board. Okay, I see Commissioner Thomas.
I just wanted to state that this applicant's purpose for this facility does fall within the profile of the district of medical services and medical support services, even in transition from one life to another. So there is something that I can support and is needed in the area. Where it's located is in a good proximity to the hospital, which is not in the way of our emergency area, but off from there. But it is a very good program. I'm glad to see it come to the area, and I do support it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments from the board? Okay, seeing none, the floor is now open for a motion.
I'd like to make the motion for approval.
Okay, we have a motion. I see Commissioner Barm making the second. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, let's see, Mr. Rudisell, you got some comments?
Yes, Madam Chair, just for clarification, I'd like to know if the motion included the staff recommended conditions?
Okay.
I do make a motion for approval with staff recommendations that he has attached to it as well. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Barnes, your second still stand? Okay, second. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor, please signal by raising your hand, please. Okay, that looks to be unanimous. All right, thank you all. Thank you. As previously stated, the public hearing RZ 20-01 with Mandalay Properties of a request of a rezoning from residential agricultural to single-family residence for property located on South of Dale Mill Road in District 3 was removed from the agenda. And also public hearing MC 20-02 Championship Martial Arts regarding a request of modifications for properties located through several Series 2327 on Jonesboro Road in District 2. It too has been removed from the agenda. So at this time now, we'll move into item 7. Again, this resolution was to discuss the acceptance of the CARES Act grant. So at this time, we'll allow Mr. Smith to make that presentation. Or the county manager. Okay, looks like Mr. Smith, David Smith will be making the presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Commissioners, and the Henry County community.
Good evening.
Before I begin, I wanted to start just listening to the beginning, just trying to get my item added to the agenda. It was very stressful for me. I want you to know that, but I get it because at the last meeting, Commissioner Thomas, even though she gave me accolades, she said that she was uncomfortable. Then at this particular meeting, Commissioner Holmes said that he was uncomfortable. So at this meeting, what I want to do, because I have a sincere challenge in front of you, and it's not just presenting a resolution. This is actually a challenge that we're facing, and it's a plea that you consider this particular resolution. Before I got up here, one of my team members provided me with this quote that said, "You should never view your challenges as a disadvantage." And so I'm not going to view this challenge of trying to get this CARES Act and its concomitant necessary MOUs passed, because the MOUs are not even mentioned. I presented them as an amendment, as an added item. but it's not an agreement that we have in place yet. But they're going to be necessary. So I began with that apology, and I apologize for putting that there, but when I get to the resolution, it does not state that. So before we talk about this resolution, I want to take a quick look at the current state of things, because it's about the people in Henry County, and it's about the businesses in Henry County. Let me give you some statistics, because Commissioner Thomas said that I was a numbers guy. So let me give you some numbers. The percentage of at least one household member losing employment since March 13th in our metro Atlanta area. Blacks, 65.5%. Spanish, 49%. Caucasian, 39.5%. Asian, 36.4%. Percentage of renters in the metro Atlanta area with no confidence in paying their rent. Black, 35.5%. Spanish, 45.5%. Asian, 30.5%. Caucasian, 30.2%. The percentage of metro Atlanta who have not enough to eat in the last week. Black, 13.1%. Spanish, 7.3%. Asian, 5.4%. Caucasian, 4.3%. The percentage of availability for distance learning, I'm going to give you the percentage that's not available for internet access and for device access. Black, 17%, not available device. Internet, 30%, not available internet. Asian, 2%. Internet, 2%. Spanish, their device, they're lacking 10%. Their internet, 8%. And Caucasian, 4% and 7%. In business in Henry County, in Atlanta, the number of small businesses that have opened decreased, that are open or were open, has decreased by 16.9% compared to January of 2020. So where are we now? While the stimulus packages have helped pay the rent, the future remains uncertain because the subsidies ended in July. Commissioners, Chair, Vice Chair, we have a tremendous opportunity before us to accomplish some very important things. To not use partners in Henry County, in this case, to help us accomplish that would be a potentially grievous error due to our exigent circumstances. The state didn't open the portal for us to access our money until a week ago. And now we have to spend it by August the 31st. How do we plan on spending it? By addressing the people and by addressing businesses. We want to address food security. We want to address the small businesses. We plan on giving $2.5 million to small businesses. We want to make grants to the nonprofits to help for food insecurity, rental and utility assistance, $2.5 million. The county has its own initiatives because our county employees need the help. We want to make certain our employees' children are educated. We allocated $2.1 million to that. We're going to hold back 1.3 in reserve so that if we need to buy necessary things like additional PPE, additional retrofits that are necessary to make certain things work, that's how we intend to spend that total $8.5 million allocation, which if this does not pass, is at risk. So let me get to the resolution. Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Commissioners, Henry County community, what you have before you is a resolution to agree to the terms and conditions to first accept the CARES Act funding in the amount of $8,457,973 from the state of Georgia by way of the United States Department of Treasury. To do this, we need to assign it to a grant fund to receive the funding and set it up for the reimbursement necessary for eligible expenditures incurred with respect to the COVID-19 pandemic response. we're going to have to transfer $5 million from our fund balance, since we've already have access to the 2 million that we would have to return if we don't accept it tonight. We have to allocate an additional 5 million from our fund balance in order to expect the reimbursement from the state of Georgia. It's up to you to appropriate the proceeds for use and support of the relief to Henry County businesses and residents. Some background. Congress passed the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, CARES, on March 27th to provide these vital resources in combating COVID-19. The CARES Act created the Coronavirus Relief Fund. The Department of Treasury provided Georgia approximately $4.1 billion based on the funding formula and determined 45% could be allocated to local governments. Henry County was awarded. We haven't received it. We have to accept it, and then we have to plan to spend it. We were awarded $8,457,973 from the state, from the CRF on June 29th. We were awarded, but they didn't open the portal for us to access it. Phase one of this is a 30% advance deposit of $2,537,392. The remaining 70% subsequent disbursements will be a reimbursement. Departmental personnel are recommending approval of this resolution. What questions do you have?
I have a question, Chair Wood.
Okay, so the floor is now open for questions. We'll begin with Commissioner Clemens, and then I've got a question as well. So Commissioner Clemens.
David, thank you for your presentation. I did not hear you talk about, so tonight I know that you've mentioned that we need to accept it, and I think that we all agree that we need to accept it. Are you saying that we need to also accept it with these initiatives that you've talked about? Because if that's the case, I didn't hear where you talked about more COVID testing sites. I'm very concerned about spending some of this money for putting up another COVID testing site centrally located throughout the county. As we change seasons, there's going to be a need for more COVID testing sites, and I didn't hear that. So please put that on your agenda to address with the funds. Also, you talked about the PPE funds that you were going to set aside, and that is because you just have to put it in a grant fund. You don't have to necessarily spend it by the 31st. So I want you to talk about that, because there are other communities that have received the same funding, and they have an application process, and then they can put it in a fund somewhere that doesn't necessarily have to be spent by August 31st. So please address that. Also, I want to make sure that we are talking about helping Henry County citizens as a whole, because if we talk about the businesses, if we talk about childcare for employees, if we talk about, what else did you say? The PPEs or rent and utility systems kind of touch on it, but COVID-19 testing has no business, no economic background. It helps everybody. So my biggest concern, and my concern from the very beginning, is that none of this money is being spent on COVID testing. So just a comment. Go ahead.
So I'll respond to the spending, because that one was a question, Commissioner. So we have to at least encumber the funds
by
August the 31st.
So
and then within 90 days, all of that money has to be spent.
So that's a correction. The money does not have to be spent by August 31st.
Okay, Mr. Smith has the floor, so continue, Mr. Smith, and then we'll come back to Commissioner Clemens. Okay, excuse me, we're gonna let Mr. Smith continue, and then we'll come back to Commissioner Clemens. So go ahead, Mr. Smith, please continue.
So the funds have to be encumbered, but what encumbrance actually means is I have to have a requisition, I have to have a purchase order, I have to have all those things in place to have a proper encumbrance that has to be submitted to the state to document that that money, yes, is in fact going to be spent within that 90-day time frame. I think the second question you had was the flexibility regarding the plan. So the plan is flexible. The plan is flexible. This was something that I wanted to present to everyone. I had to present it to Sherry and to Brad and to the chair and then to the commission about how we could spend the money. But listening to the commission over the past year, 2 years that I've been here, those priorities were clearly identified as, let's spend it on small businesses in our community, let's spend it on the people in our community that need help. And that's what this plan addresses. Now, it can also address testing sites, which is one of the public health items that are mentioned as an eligible expense, and we can revise those numbers to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else, Commissioner Clemens? Okay, I had a question, then I'll come to Commissioner Thomas. Thank you for the presentation and then also the passion by which you did it, Mr. Smith. You made a mention of several items of how the allocation can be spent. And then, of course, we just had the recommendation of how do we definitely make sure we have more COVID testing to benefit all. Is there a way that even citizens can apply for childcare? Because there's a lot of families right now. You made a mention about, employment, loss of employment, and so forth. But there are some that can't even get to work because of childcare. So is that an eligible expense under this category of CARES Act as well?
Chair, it is an eligible expense. And that's why, again, I apologize by jumping the gun with regard to talking about MOUs and adding that as an attachment, because one of the MOUs was for nonprofits. But we can't provide that money directly to the individual, but we can provide it to the agency that provides that money to the individual through an application process that can certify, in fact, that they need that. We had a time frame that we're going to propose in those MOUs for that to take place.
Okay, and again, we're talking about for the general public regarding
For the general public.
Okay,
That's
great,
correct.
thank you. Okay, thank you. That was my question. Okay, Commissioner Thomas.
Again, David, thank you for your numbers, and I tried to write down a lot of them as you were speaking. And thank you for the passion in which you delivered. It's not that we don't hear you. It's that we are trying to be very, very careful to make sure that these dollars go to the people that need the assistance. That's very imperative. We are definitely concerned about small businesses, but we want to make sure these small businesses are the ones who have not received PPP support. That's important. We need to make sure in the process of designing who receives this money, we have some type of relaxation in the qualifications to receive some of this money. That's important, very important. We need to make sure our senior citizens are receiving support. They need it for their rent. They need it for their utilities. We need to make sure that the process of making that happen is addressed. You talked about rent and utilities. That's something that everybody can participate in. We would definitely need more information about the virtual learning process. Who would that encompass? Is that all citizens or just Henry County citizens? How many of our people do we have working at home that will not qualify for that? So we have a lot of questions. And that's one of the reasons I said tonight, let's accept this money because we have to accept it. Now, you gave another date that was very important to me. You said you were aware, June the 29th, I believe, that this money was forthcoming. If we knew this money was forthcoming June the 29th, a plan should have been in place. A criteria should have been set. It should have been placed before us so that we can say, here are the criteria that we're looking at. Here's what we're planning that we would like to place these monies. Here are the percentages by which we hope these monies can be broken down into. That was June 29th. That should have happened. And that should have come from administration during that time period, whether we had any money or not. And it's okay to say, hey, the money didn't come, but we have a plan prepared in case it come on round number 2. That should have happened. We don't have it. Now you stated that we have to receive the money by August the 31st.
Spend
the money by August 31st.
Wait, so let Commissioner Thomas finish. She's got the floor, so.
Write down the notes. So if I made a mistake, please do correct me. I thought you said you had to receive it, but we have to spend the money by August 31st. Okay. Now, the vehicles by which you've made the recommendation causes another problem because we need to make sure the vehicles that you have recommended to fund this money through represents the county, not a certain segment of it, but the county. And that is something I am uncomfortable with Because one of the vehicles that you have recommended, I personally have tried to make sure that I was comfortable with them, open the doors for some discussions, and did not get those discussions reciprocated back to me. And I'm a county official, and I have concerns about that. So when we say to you, we have questions, David, we're talking about populations that we touch every day. And I am a person that touches populations every day. Today, I was out touching populations. Today, I talked with someone homeless. Today, I talked with families who wanted to eat. So these are populations that I touch every day. I don't want the same companies who can rush to a certain entity with all their documents in place, who could afford an accountant, who could afford getting their books in place, say, we're getting this money, and they get it first. I do want that small business who is struggling to hire 5 or 6 people, who is the accountant, the bookkeeper, who cut the grass, who do everything themselves, who's saying, I don't have it perfectly in order, but here's what I need. Those are the people we want to touch as well, because we find those are the ones that keep us going, those essential plumbers, those essential electricians, those essential people who maintain us. Those are the ones we want to touch. So as passionate as you are about getting this money, and as passionate as you are about funneling it through somebody, I'm just as passionate about who gets to funnel that money out, what criteria has been set, and have we reviewed that criteria? Because I don't want to hear again, people with certain last names got the money. People with own certain companies got the money. People who've been rooted in Henry County for the longest got the money. I don't want to see that happen. That's where my passion is. So yes, I do want to accept this money. We have time to spend money. It doesn't take long to spend money. But set that criteria, and that criteria needs to be reviewed. If it means we need another special call meeting, we need to see that criteria. And we need to determine who will be the people that will funnel this money out to this community. Because some of the people that you're talking about do not touch parts of this community.
Okay, Mr. Smith, we'll look, if we can go to Commissioner Holmes, and then we can come back to you if that's okay. So Commissioner Holmes. You're muted, Commissioner Holmes.
Hey, David, I also agree with your plea. It was heart-wrenching. Actually, almost shed a few tears. However, the next time you talk about the data, make sure you talk about Henry County data specifically. The next thing I want to say is I agree with pretty much everything Commissioner Thomas touched on. There needs to be a criteria set. We need to ensure that we allocate these funds to businesses that didn't already receive PPP, and we need to set up a way where the Board of Commissioners set the criteria, and we create a committee that allocates the funds to ensure that everybody, all the businesses in Henry County, have access to these monies. So if you can begin putting a real plan in place, not a plan to give the Chamber of Commerce $5.5 million to allocate the funds as they wish, a plan that is going to give everybody an opportunity to benefit from these funds, especially businesses in the county that have experienced a hardship. I think that would be the best way to go.
Okay. Okay, and I have a question, Mr. Smith, and then I'll let you respond back to all that has been presented, unless there's some other comments from the other commissioners. So I know you were recommending that the chamber becomes a part of the portal agency in this distribution. Do you have to be a chamber member to literally take advantage of this benefit that we're speaking about? Because I'm hearing some concerns about the organization. So if you can clarify that. And then the second thing is, if it's not an MOU with the chamber, who is it, and what organization could actually help us meet the deadline and the criterion? Because that would be the other thing. What are the other options that are out there? So are there any other questions from the commissioners before we allow Mr. Smith to kind of respond back? Yes, Commissioner Clemens.
David, I would encourage you to look at some of the other counties that have already received their funds and look at who they have partnered with to disseminate the funds. It helped them to extend their date past August 31st. So I know that you may be pressured to answer on the fly about who else can do it, but I would really want to have you to have an opportunity to look at some of the other plans that have already been put out there that we could use to partner with banks, so forth and so on. And also so that we can have more time to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to participate in the funding. Also to give us time to create those MOUs to create more COVID testing sites, as well as some of the nonprofits that may touch seniors in the community.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Mr. Smith, you like to respond to any and all that has been discussed?
So it's very difficult to respond to any and all, but I'll do my best.
Okay.
Because I certainly can't address what the concerns are with the local chamber that we have here. I have but I can say that due to the exigency of our circumstances, the need to immediately spend money, they are the ones that are more suited to the distribution of funds to small businesses. Now, one of the statements that was made was about addressing the small business needs. And there was also a statement made about making certain that they do not receive the businesses that have already received PPP. So one of my teammates and I, we've already developed a set of criteria based upon the eligibility criteria sent down by the Department of Treasury that talks to there cannot be any duplication of expenses. And if someone's received PPP, they can't receive the funding that way. And so that was one of the criteria that we proposed and then did share with the chamber. But here in Henry County, they're the ones that have the ability to provide funding based upon the criteria we provided to them. They also have an application process. They have an ability to evaluate the clientele. There is going to be no restriction on who applies there. You don't have to be a member there. Those are some of the things that we already discussed and have went over with the chamber in terms of who we're going to try to reach funding with. We also talked about providing a percentage. I see you, Commissioner Holmes. We also talked about providing a percentage for those minority-owned businesses, those disadvantaged business enterprises. There's some restrictions that we've talked about and we were going to prepare and put into our agreement. And one of the things that Commissioner Thomas touched on was about getting money in the hands of certain businesses. Well, I would like to do the same thing, but the federal government has certain rules and guidelines that we must abide by. And those rules and guidelines are very strict. They talk to how long you have to have been in business. They talk to whether you have internal controls in your place of business. They talk to whether or not you have accounting records that can be audited. So they talk to several different things, and those are things that as you apply, you have to make certain you have in place. That's one of the reasons why we were trying to do from our purchasing group side, reach out and talk about how to do business with Henry County, how you set your business up, what you need to have in place in terms of internal control so that when opportunities like this arise, that those businesses are prepared and ready to then apply for and receive funds without any issue. One of the things you talked to, Chair, was the portal. These nonprofits will not have access to the portal. The access to the portal is limited to those people that you've indicated on your list. We then spend the money and then receive reimbursement by applying through the portal. Then those agencies have to be audited based upon the information that they send back to us for those companies that have been determined as eligible. Same for the nonprofits that we planned on distributing the money to. We cannot do this without the collaboration of our business and nonprofit community. One of the questions one of the commissioners asked me, well, why can't we do it? We aren't adequately staffed to do it in the time frame that we have. And so in order to expedite this process, in order to ensure that we get things done the right way so that we don't have to return any of the funds, is to make certain we collaborate with those agencies that are already in existence. I think I touched on all the questions.
Okay, thank you. And then Commissioner Holmes has a question, and then we'll come to Commissioner Thomas. So Commissioner Holmes.
Yeah, David, from what you just spoke about, it sounds like you or you guys have already worked with the chamber to work out some type of program to allocate these funds to certain businesses and nonprofits. However, we just received this information at the time of the meeting. So that's another thing that's kind of odd and kind of has me feeling like, you know, what's been going on that at least myself, and I'm not sure if any other commissioner was aware that these conversations had been taking place. That's a lot of money to, you know, you're talking $8 million, David, and that's a lot of money to be having side conversations with people outside of the people who have to approve and allocate the money to the Chamber of Commerce and these other organizations. So I'm curious to when these conversations took place and how and what has been established already to date.
May I respond, Chair?
Oh, sure, you may.
So Commissioner Holmes, so you tasked the county manager to be the administrator of our duties. The county manager then tasked us to go out and find out what to do. And I was hired for that particular purpose, that specific purpose. Then when we come back to you to present to you what our plan of approach is, how we plan to distribute, and we ask for you to vote on that. Hence the purpose of the resolution. But all of the work, the groundwork, has to be done ahead of time. And that's what I'm going to address the next one. So that's what we began to immediately do when we found out that we were going to be allocated the funds. But our priorities were clear about what we were going to do when we were allocated the funds. And that was to make certain we address the small businesses in Henry County. So how best do we go about that? How are we going to address those people that need rental assistance? Getting money to the nonprofits that actually do that already. We developed a plan and criteria around those in alignment with the guidelines that are established in the CARES Act. So we did begin that immediately. So I apologize if I went about doing my job that I was assigned to do and then come back before you and present it for your approval. Can I finish, Commissioner Holmes?
Oh, wait, okay, go ahead.
Can I finish, Commissioner Holmes?
You have the floor, Mr. Smith, so one person at a time. So please proceed, and then we'll come to Commissioner Holmes.
So there was no plan and there were no backdoor deals, because I'm getting the impression you're maligning my character. There were no backdoor deals that were stated or made, but certainly reaching out to those people that we knew could expedite our process as quickly and as responsibly as possible, given the guidelines that we had. Now, to the $8.5 million that you mentioned, we weren't intending to give the chamber to give to small businesses. In other words, the chamber is a conduit. We weren't intending to give the chamber $8.5 million. We had planned on allocating it to the various agencies, similar to what Commissioner Clemens touched on. We're going to address public health. We're going to address the nonprofits. We're going to address the small businesses. And we're going to split that by various percentages. Now, if you disagree with the percentages, we can go back and rearrange that. But $8.5 million was not going directly to the chamber.
Okay. I see you totally missed my point. My point was, you guys have been working on this for weeks. And we just received this information or this resolution at the time this particular meeting started. So what I'm trying to say is, since you guys have been working on it, why weren't we made aware of this CARE Act capital before this meeting? I mean, even if we had gotten the information that yesterday or the day before, last Friday, I think that would have been sufficient. But you're expecting us to vote to allocate, I don't know how much to a third party to pick out who is going to benefit from, from the federal funds without us having having a chance to review any type of criteria or have anything to say about what we think may be a better solution.
You want me to
Okay.
respond?
Well, if there is a response, but it seems like you'll be repeating what you stated already. So let's hear what I think Commissioner Thomas had her hand raised. So we'll go to Commissioner Thomas.
One of my questions, David, is what is the administrative charge or percentages that goes through the partners through which this money is funded?
We were not going to have an administrative charge from the chamber or the nonprofits.
Okay. Any other questions? And that was one of my questions as well. Commissioner Clemens.
No, I didn't finish.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Thomas. I'm sorry. Yeah.
The other question is, can general operations expenditures be a part of people receiving this funding? Not general operation expenditures.
So these have to be for unbudgeted expenditures. It can't be for revenue loss, and it can only be for eligible expenditures to respond to the COVID crisis. One of the things Commissioner Clemens touched on was PPE, setting up COVID testing sites. One of the things you touched on was assistance if I had a job loss. Another one, Commissioner Holmes touched on this, was a rental and utility assistance. But we're not set up here at the county to provide rental assistance. That's why we utilize the agencies, and they pay that money directly to the property owner or to the utility provider, not to the individual themselves. And then that is time bound.
Okay. The application process that you described, was it done internally or was it done externally to the board, to the county?
The application for the individuals or in businesses?
Yes. Was that something created internally or was it done external?
Those were done externally, but I haven't seen, and we've requested, and that's one of the things, once we do decide on who we're going to utilize. And I'll get back to addressing one of the questions or statements that.
So we haven't seen the actual application itself?
No, I just heard from Shannon. Shannon's
Okay.
saying she created the application. So do you want to hear from her in response to that question?
Well, that would be fine. I'm trying to get a feel for where we are. So,
Okay.
Ms. Shannon said she created the application that will be used.
The criteria for the application.
She created criteria for the actual application that will be used.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What part of this can be used for? I know we talked about rental assistance, utilities. Is there anything there to allow us to help seniors with their food or health care at all?
There is, and the plan is, and the allocation is flexible. So there is, I mean, we can do all of those things.
Okay. Well, those are my questions for now. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Commissioner Clemens, I think you had your hand raised. Yes.
David, you still did not address the bank question. I guess you'll get back with me on the bank if you need to.
I can address the bank question.
Okay, and also Shannon said that she worked on the application process. I actually walked through the application process today to take a look at it. And I would say that I'm concerned about the low to mod part of it because since it's not CDBG funds, I think that part can be taken out of the qualifications. I think that is a hindrance and that will eliminate a lot of businesses in Henry County that need the funds. So that is a huge part of it that shouldn't be in there. And that's the purpose of us being able to have information ahead of time. I did have an opportunity to go through it. So that was one of the things that I saw that nobody would have called if they're not out here in the business community to know where the businesses are. And so the fact that you did have a conversation with someone that you thought was well aware of what should have been, they missed that part. And so I would like to be involved in talking about that, you know, from an expertise of the businesses in the county, but that needs to be taken completely out.
That could be done. Now, for the banking question, the reason why we didn't consider the banks is because banks typically require you to be a customer of their bank. They typically require you to have a certain dollar amount in their bank. And the goal, similar to what Commissioner Thomas had just touched on, was to not be restrictive, but to get the money to those people that needed it as quickly and as rapidly as possible, once they qualified and were eligible for it.
Chair Wood, I would like to continue the dialogue about this question that he's answering for me.
Okay, Commissioner Clemens, you've got the floor.
So David, you talked about the customer who applies would need to be part of the bank. I don't know that that's true. That's why I wanted to really give you an opportunity to take a look at it, because there are some banks that are working with counties that are doing it, and they're not having to be a customer. And I did send you an email on some of that today, and it was probably while you were at the meeting. But just take some time to look at that, because there are some other options for us, because we don't want to lose this opportunity because we have some reservations about organizations when there may be other organizations that there may not be any hesitation about. So I want to encourage you to look outside of just one organization.
I can do that. And Commissioner, we haven't signed any agreement with any one particular organization.
But David, the problem with that is that the one particular organization, the chamber, even though you have not signed an agreement, they have already began to advertise that they are disseminating the funds. They have already began to accept applications for the funds. And so I understand what you're saying. And the reason that the other commissioners are so passionate about it is because even though you're saying that you've not signed an agreement, it's advertised. I mean, you guys have already set up a website. You can go on it. When I went on it today, I went to the chamber website to look at the application process. So yes, you are doing your job, but you guys kind of jumped the gun before getting this approved through the Board of Commissioners. And you know, I'm always about policies and procedures. And so the policies and procedures, you should have come to the board first, gotten the approval to partner, because right now you have a partnership that's been a word of mouth partnership, and the partner has already started running with the program.
Okay, anything else, Commissioner Clemens?
And as Commissioner Thomas is saying, she wanted to be fair and equitable, but there are businesses already that have applied, and there are other businesses that knew nothing about this. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so now Commissioner Thomas.
Commissioner Clemens, you have really troubled me. Now, I have not been on the site, and I do not have, didn't know to have access to this application. Now, you're saying to me that the chamber is already advertising this, and they have a site set up saying they are the agency that will be disseminating this money. I have a problem with that. I have a huge problem with that.
Okay, well, we've had
from administration how this is going to be addressed. And I would love to hear the county manager tell me how the chamber got this information, that they can start advertising this information. And here I am, a sitting commissioner, and I have to face my small businesses, my senior citizens, and other people in this county and say, you didn't tell us that. And I send out newsletters, and I communicate, and I email. I had no idea. How do I address this with my constituents? And how is my administration has this happening that I don't know anything about? That is a huge problem, what you just stated to me, Commissioner. I am very concerned about this.
Okay, anything else, Commissioner Thomas, before we invite, I think the county manager was approaching the mic. Okay, so we'll invite up Ms. Matthews to respond.
Yes, Commissioner Thomas, and I apologize because I understood that you were aware that the chamber had put out some information regarding the CARES funding. So I apologize for that. As you know, and Mr. Smith has indicated, and I know that you all are frustrated because staff was literally trying to make sure that we didn't have to return the funds back to the state in terms of the allocation. We too expressed concerns because we understood that some information had gone out before the memorandum of understanding, before any agreements by the board. But that is not the fault of myself, staff, or anyone else that's worked on it. The chamber jumped ahead to go ahead and try to make sure that those funds were being expended. So I know you're frustrated. You've said that a couple of times that you're frustrated, but I can't speak to why it happened in the order in which it happened. We were trying to be proactive to make sure that we had a plan for you all, because you all have said over and over again, do not come to us without a plan. Here it is. We have a plan that we're trying to present to the board. If you all don't like the plan, we can scratch the plan. If you want to allocate more monies to someone else, that is certainly at your discretion. All we're needing to know tonight is, are we able to accept those funds and transfer funds over to fund balance so that we can go ahead and encumber the expenses? It would make no sense for us to not do the legwork and bring it to you all to try to figure out what needs to happen. Again, this was just staff's first stab at trying to make some recommendations to the board. You all are absolutely correct. If you all want to expend $6 million towards utility payments or COVID-19 test sites, that's what we'll do. But part of our job is to bring solutions to you all. That's what we were trying to do. We've looked at and we've listened to what we've heard from the board. You all have talked about over and over and over again, small businesses. Commissioner Thomas, myself, you, and I do believe Mr. Henning talked specifically during the COVID-19 when it initially hit about the collaboration and what type of loans, grants, or what the chamber could do in terms of small businesses. So it's a little frustrating when we think we hear what the board is saying, but then we hear something different. Commissioner Thomas, we are just trying to get the funds spent. I don't want to be a county that returns $8.5 million. We need to accept the funds that have been allocated. If you all don't like the distribution, tell us tonight how you want those funds distributed. We need a committee to do it. We just need to hear from you all. What are your priorities? If you want 50% of the funds to go towards small businesses, we'll put it towards small businesses. Commissioner Clemens, I hear you. We will remove the low to mod income requirement. But the chamber, the only mistake that was made is that the information was put out and we weren't given credit for it. That's the bottom line. This is funds that were received by Henry County government that we were using the chamber as a pass-through. For that, I will apologize. I will say, hey, I wish we had got in front of the chamber to do this, but it didn't happen that way. All we can do tonight is correct it. Correct it, let the public know, and there are thousands of people that are viewing the board meeting. Let them know that those funds were designated to Henry County government, and Henry County Board of Commissioners will decide how those funds are being expended.
All right, Commissioner Thomas still has the floor. Commissioner Thomas still has the floor. Then we go to Commissioner Holmes and then I'll speak. Okay, so Commissioner Thomas, you still have the floor.
Yes, in response to that, I do want to speak because early in the year, not now, not knowing any COVID funds were coming, earlier in the year, I'm going to say, and I have to look back at emails from January, February, somewhere along there, when this thing started. And I think I even mentioned to the chair, I said, I'd like to see what the chamber's going to do in response to this. And I reached out, and I reached out. Now, and I did not want to go through any specifics, but I did not get responses as to how this board can work with the chamber during that time period. That reaching out was not in correlation to what we're talking about today. It has nothing to do with these funds. The two do not match at all. That's number one. And I think that maybe some of the reason I'm uncomfortable, because before there was a crisis, I reached out to determine how the two of us, meaning the chamber and the commissioners, can start dialogue about how to work together in this county. Just remember, that conversation has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. So there was no other conversations about this money with the chamber from this commission. I do have a frustration that opportunities were there to have a very good conversation with us. They could have reached out to us and said, hey, we understand these monies are coming down. We would like to be an agency. Let's talk with you all about your goals, what you'd like to see, and work with us and decide how we can work together. That should have been a way to make this happen. But again, we got this at a very late notice. We are going to receive this money. That's not a question, Sherry. I don't want anyone watching this video or watching this session, this live session to think that these commissioners are not going to receive this money. We plan to receive the money. But our goal is to make sure when we receive this money, it's received in the right hands, it's distributed properly, that all people, as many people as possible, will have access to it. That's the reason for the questions.
Okay, anything else? Anything else, Commissioner Thomas, before we go to Commissioner Holmes, and then I'll speak? Okay, Commissioner Holmes.
Yeah, I just want to say, I want to move to accept the funds and that we immediately move forward with setting up a process to distribute the funds.
Okay, thank you for that comment. And Commissioner Holmes, my thought were, and I don't know if I haven't opened it up for a motion, but I agree with most to accept the funds, but I also would say that we should transfer the funds to fund balance and work on a plan on how the funds should be allocated with input from the Board of Commissioners. Commissioner Wilson, you got a thought? Commissioner Wilson, you may unmute your phone.
Okay. Sherry, she disappeared. Anyway, I had a comment for her. There she is. I know this has probably been stressful for you and your staff for the last couple of weeks to get to this point, but I just want to tell you, I appreciate for all the work you and your staff's done and David and his staff's done to get us to this point. And looks like we've got us a little tweaking to do, but thank you for you and your staff for all the hard work.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. Was there any other comment or question? Okay, Ms. Matthews.
Chairwood, just for clarification purposes, please keep in mind that this is reimbursable. And so we have to spend the money to get the money back. And so I want to make sure that everybody's clear on that in terms of they're not just going to front load $6.5 million or $5.5 million to the county. We have to show that we have an expenditure. We will then provide them with receipts, invoices, requisitions, and then the state will reimburse us. So that's the need for having to transfer those funds out of fund balance and expend them first with the understanding that we will be reimbursed.
Okay, and just as a clarification of, and Commissioner Holmes, I may need your help with this as well, but what we were wanting to do is accept the funds. Apparently, what we're trying to say is that before any funds are really distributed, you need to come up with the allocation plan with input from the Board of Commissioners. So I don't know where the transfer of funds to the fund balance is going to be most critical in that part of the process, because I think we got a Board of Commissioners meeting coming up next week. If there's a way, to kind of bring at least the allocation process back, that we're speaking about, or more details that commissioners are looking for, then we can approve that part of it next Tuesday, if that's it. Commissioner Holmes?
Yeah, I think we can start as early as tomorrow with 3-on-3s. I'm available in the morning to discuss how we move this process forward. And I'm pretty sure that the other commissioners can make themselves available to discuss it via Zoom with Sherry and David tomorrow as well. I'm pretty sure there's a way to make this work. I mean, there are a lot of people that are in need in this county, and we have to find a way to ensure that that everybody has the same opportunities to benefit from this funding.
Okay. Well, we've had a lot of discussion on this matter. We're going to call question now and open the floor for a motion.
I move that we accept the funding into fund balance with conversations to take place starting tomorrow between the commissioners and staff to figure out how to set up a process moving forward.
Okay, I want to, okay, so I saw a second. So I saw a motion by Commissioner Holmes, a second by Commissioner Thomas. I want to check in with staff to make sure that we're clear about what the motion is. So I'm looking to the county management team, and Mr. Smith, are you clear? Can you really restate what you heard about that motion so that we're all on the same page?
Commissioner Holmes, stated that he wants to move forward with accepting the funds, assigning the appropriate amount of fund balance, and then waiting to meet to determine the proper allocation process. Starting tomorrow.
Okay. All right, so we've had a motion and a second and a clarification of the motion. Are there any other questions or comments from the board?
Yes,
Okay, Commissioner Clemens.
David, and you do understand, also included in that, the allocations will be the discussions for the dissemination of pass-throughs.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor of that motion, please signal by raising your hand, please. Okay, that looks to be unanimous, so thank you much. All
Thank
right,
you.
and thank you all for that conversation. Okay, so that was regarding the conversation regarding the CARES Act, and I knew there were some discussions regarding the virtual learning centers. That was added to the agenda, but again, in light of what we just discussed, let's at least have the presentation for discussion so that can be a factor as the staff is meeting with commissioners. So thank you. You may come forward now. Ms. Senor.
Yes, good evening. Tech Services is assisting currently so that we can share the PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, good evening again, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the commission. This evening, I am presenting before you a resolution to approve the entering agreements with Clayton State University, Mercer University, and Southern Crescent Technical College for student teachers to assist at virtual learning centers. As you heard in David Smith's presentation, funding has been allocated or recommended for the use to assist with virtual care centers or virtual learning centers, excuse me. Many county employees have school-aged children who are too young to stay at home alone while their parents work outside of the home. The majority of area school districts for which our employees' children are enrolled will be beginning the 2020 through 2021 school year with all students attending classes virtually due to COVID-19. In an effort to support employees during the school closures, Henry County's leadership team seeks to operate virtual learning centers. We did conduct surveys to garner the interest of employees. 60% of survey for their children between kindergarten as well as through 8th grade. Their children could perform their remote learning activities on premises at the county in recreation facilities from approximately 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. This schedule is with the hopes of accommodating employees at various operations of county government. The virtual learning centers will be located in county recreation centers, specifically Bear Creek, Heritage, and Locust Grove. In addition to Parks and Recreation staff, the virtual learning centers will be manned by Henry County retired educators and college students majoring in education programs at area colleges and universities. Retirees and college students will be hired on a temporary part-time basis. The partnerships with the colleges and universities and employment of retired educators will be mutually beneficial. The benefit includes the provision of a supervised environment with internet access for employees' children. College students will gain practical field experience required for their degree programs under the supervision and guidance of certified retired educators who will have the opportunity to earn part-time wages to supplement their income. Expenses related to the program will be paid through the CARES funding awarded by the Department of Treasury. Participation is limited to employees' children, again, through the grades of kindergarten through 8th. Meals, including breakfast and lunch and snacks, will be provided. They will be prepared by senior service kitchen staff. Students can bring meals and snacks from home. Center hours, again, are recommended for 6 a.m. until 6 p.m. Students will have their temperatures checked each morning at arrival. Their parents will be required to respond to questions regarding the student's contact with anyone who has COVID-19 in the last 14 days, and if the student is experiencing any flu-like symptoms. These are the same type of questions that employees respond to for themselves before entering a county facility. We will request and strongly encourage the wearing of face coverings for students. Face masks will be required for all adults. Additional safety procedures to limit access to the facilities, such as outside drop-off and pickup, will also be coordinated by staff. I am happy to accept any questions that you all may have.
Okay, thank you. I think I've seen Commissioner Clemens' hand and Commissioner Thomas' hands. So we'll begin with Commissioner Clemens.
Shannon, thank you. The intentions are very well, but I have a lot of concerns. One, I need staff to make sure that they have consulted with our District 4 Department of Health and gotten their input on this. That has not happened. And I don't think that our State Department of Health would agree that we should be doing this. Georgia Department of Early Care and Learning is our child care agency for the state of Georgia. They have specific guidelines for anybody operating anything dealing with children. I didn't hear any of their processes involved in this. There is no way that we could support, I can support anything bringing children into a facility when the schools are not even allowing the kids into the facilities, and we're not mandating that everybody in there wears masks. I don't know if our county staff that put this together has looked at the news lately of the schools that have opened, but we can't even keep our employees safe from COVID. And how in the world are we going to try to keep somebody's children safe? I understand the intent, and I want to provide services and help for our employees. Maybe we can give them a process to apply for funding, but keeping them on county property is going to be a huge liability. And I also want to hear from Ms. Fontaine about the liability. But I mean, I don't really have to hear from them. I'm just saying you guys need to hear from her, because when it comes to child care facilities and keeping kids, I know that field pretty well. And so you don't have to respond to that, but consult the DPH, contact Department of Early Care and Learning, and safety measures. I don't see where we put up plexiglasses in there where the kids are going to be separated, how we're going to maintain social distance with the children. Are we going to have COVID testing on site? All those things that the school system is struggling to get approved, which is why they shut down, we're going to have to put in place. Are we going to be able to have, because it's a virtual learning space, so everybody will be able to bring their kids. The other concern is that just as important as our staff needs childcare, there are other people that need it too. So we got to make sure that if we're going to spend these dollars, that it's open to everybody. So just some food for thought.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Thomas, and then I'll come after Commissioner Thomas.
Well, Commissioner Clemens mentioned a lot of the things that I was concerned about. Who's going to license these facilities? They have to be licensed. Who's going to separate these children by age groups? They have to be separated by age group. What is our liability in having these children? There are so many adults required by the state per number of children. Certain children are not allowed to be in the company of other children. We have opened a Pandora's box here that certain people don't know about. I've done child care and early education for 25 years. And there are too many violations just mentioned in the proposal itself that we cannot accommodate. What type of healthcare facilities are we going to have on site for sick children? You're required to have some type of answer for that. Who in the world is going to cook for them that has been certified to prepare food for these children? That is the requirement. Will we participate in CACFP? That's another federal program. There are too many unanswered questions, and I can continue to go down the list of things that we are not prepared for. If you're considering helping with some form of child care, then maybe you need to consider some form of voucher that will be done to go to people who know how to do this. And this is child care providers. And by doing that, they have the trained staff in place and understand the guidelines that the state require. And then we can support, maybe pay a portion of the fees that the parents are having to pay for child care through some form of voucher. But to have them come to our facilities, which are not prepared to receive children, to have them in a place that we are not sure what the insurance liability will be. We definitely don't understand who's going to equip the rooms. It costs about $10,000 per classroom to put the basic equipment in a room based on age group, an average of $10,000 per room. Well, if we decide to do this temporarily, how are we going to do the equipment when we finish it? There are too many unanswered questions. The intent may be well, but I can think of 25 more questions to ask tonight. But I will say, if you want to consider how to help our parents, to help them with the cost, let's look at some type of voucher system where they can receive a certain amount of money, a certain percentage of what they're paying in child care fees to help. But then, like Commissioner Clemens said, whatever Pandora door we open, because these fundings are for everyone, we need to find a way to include other people as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, and my comments kind of relate back to comments that I made earlier regarding the CARES Act allocation. My recommendation would be for employees and for citizens in our county, if there can be some funding allocated, and those are things that we'll talk about in the Commissioner 101s for child care, because this is a challenge for many of our citizens and families. People are having to determine if they're going to work or even stay home and take care of their children. So this is a serious time for a lot of families. And again, my recommendation is, as we talk about the CARES Act funding, let's allow some families to apply. I don't know what the criterion would be. And Mr. Smith did confirm that this could be a qualified factor for CARES Act. So I would encourage us to think about that as well. So those are my thoughts. Commissioner Wilson, I saw your hand.
No, ma'am, you covered it. That's all I have. Just going to kind of repeat some of the things that y'all covered. So I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Any other? Commissioner Barnes?
Yes, Commissioner Clemson really raised some good questions, and I'd like to hear staff's response to some of these questions, and also Commissioner Thomas. I think there's some good questions, and I want to make sure whatever we do, we're doing right. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Senor, we'll come back to you in response.
Thank you. Thank you all for your questions and concerns. In regards to safety, and I will state that although Risk Management Director, Ms. Holly LaFontaine, is not currently present with us this evening, she has visited the facilities, working with our facilities maintenance director as well as our Parks and Recreation team. They have walked through the facilities and established safety plans and coordinated how to best move children throughout the properties and within the facilities, as well as seating to ensure our social distancing of a minimum of 6 feet. We're proposing multiple facilities to ensure that we don't have any overcrowding. We also have caps in place for the number of individuals on site at each facility. In regards to consulting DPH, we can definitely do that. Speaking to licensing, this will be operated as we do summer camp programs through our Parks and Recreation. I also mentioned in the presentation, and you would have seen in the PowerPoint, there was a question in regards to who would cook. Our senior services staff who cook for our seniors and have very specific dietary requirements for that program would also be tasked with preparing the lunch, meals, and snacks for the youth program.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm sorry.
I want to just add a couple of comments, and Ms. Senio has hit on a lot of it. This is definitely not a school or a daycare. This is simply oversight for students that cannot be left at home unsupervised while the virtual learning is going on. Each student will bring their county-issued computer. Remember, their teachers will actually be doing the teaching. The virtual will be coming through the teachers. Now, I don't know if the board is aware of this or not, but the Henry County Board of Education ran 2 summer schools this year from 2 locations with 150 students at every school. We have taken every measure possible to make sure that we are ready to bring those students in. This is not 150 kids that are going to be located at one location. I believe Heritage is one of the locations. The max number, I believe, is anywhere between 40 and 50. We have the Bear Creek location, and then we have the Locust Grove location. So there's definitely not going to be where it's a school setting where people are coming in and they're outside playing or doing anything like that. Each student will be assigned a desk that is assigned to them every single day. That's assigned to them. And I think Shannon even mentioned that before they enter the building, they're going to have their temperature screen, similar to those parents that have brought their kids to our own county administration building every single day to do business here with the county. Again, what we were trying to do is provide some relief to our county employees who would otherwise have to take time from work and not be here and not be able to provide services to those residents. Now, we can certainly look at other options to providing assistance to those that are in need. But keep in mind, commissioners, we are looking to provide something for kindergarten through 8th grade. There are not daycare facilities that will house 8th graders, not daycare facilities that may be able to provide that. And they too, now daycare facilities too have standards and regulations that they must follow as a result of COVID. So they may already be at their limits. We're willing to work with anyone that may need assistance outside of the county to provide some type of financial assistance. But I want the board to be clear that we are not trying to be a school, a daycare. We're running the same type of oversight that we run with our summer Parks and Rec summer camp that requires no approval from the state. If you'll remember, the governor's orders has allowed most activities to return. We have students that are participating in soccer activities, baseball activities, and we have made every necessary provision to make sure that we have provisions in place so that we are at least adhering to those CDC requirements and any guidance from the Department of Public Health. We will follow up with the Department of Public Health because I do think that's one thing we did miss, just to follow up with them specifically on any concerns that they may have. And if they advise that they don't recommend it, we won't proceed. We're not going to ignore the regulations and guidelines that are in place. But I did want to reiterate that we are definitely not trying to be a school. We have retired educators from the Henry County school system that will be there more as an oversight to make sure that the students are paying attention, are listening to the teachers. But each student, when they arrive, they have a teacher that they'll log on to their computer, and that teacher will actually be teaching. We're not trying to be the teachers in lieu of what's already there. We were just trying to provide a resource to our employees who came to various department heads and expressed concerns about the schools not reopening.
Okay, I saw Commissioner Holmes, and we'll come to Commissioner Wilson.
Sherry, is there any way that those parents that have school-age kids, is there any way that we can supply them with the computers where they can work virtual until all this COVID mess subsides?
Well, Commissioner Holmes, we can certainly provide resources, but there are some positions in which we physically have to have the person here. They can't do their job without physically being here. And for example, Commissioner Holmes, I have one department right now, and I'll just mention it's the building department, that we will probably end up losing anywhere from 2 to 3 permit technicians that will have to take emergency leave because they don't have the assistance, or they're going to have to stay home with their kids. When you start reducing the number of people that are within those departments, I can't double fill those positions, which means there's going to be an impact on the services that we're able to provide. And we want to be able to continue to provide service to our residents. So yes, in some cases, Commissioner Holmes, but not in every case. For example, we have for my public safety team, our firefighters, our police officers, I can't provide them with technology because their job requires them to be on the streets, to be out doing public safety type work. And I will tell you, a high percentage of those requests have come in from public safety. And we can provide to you all the numbers if you'd like to see that as well.
It just seems like we have people, employees testing positive consistently in Henry County. And I'm concerned about that. So is there any way Patrick can speak to the liability, just in case we have a couple of kids come down with COVID?
He said it this way, Commissioner Holmes.
Okay.
As a general rule, we would not be legally liable for the transmission of COVID as long as we're doing those things that are reasonable. There was recently a law passed, the legislature that's just now going into effect, that actually provides specific protection against claims for infections to pass. And we'll be working on doing all of the things that that law requires. But even so, even in the absence of that law, I don't think the county or any organization will be liable for the transmission of COVID, given what the world knows about it. If you send your child to school, there is an assumption of the risk. We know there's a risk. We all know when we go out into public unprotected that we're taking a risk, and we're probably assuming that risk. But as long as we're taking those reasonable measures, it sounds like they've described, I'm not terribly concerned about liability on our part. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't be concerned about the spread of the virus. I think there's really two different views. One concern will be liability of the county. The other concern would just be the impact of the spread of the virus. And there's nothing, if it spreads, it spreads. And I don't think anybody wants to see that.
Okay, anything else, Commissioner Holmes? Okay, I saw Commissioner Wilson and then Commissioner Clemens.
Oh, I had a question for Sherry. So you mentioned, Sherry, that employees would need to take emergency leave. So can you kind of touch on that? What kind of leave would that be? Is that a reimbursable leave? Or how does that work?
So under the CARES Act, it is called EFMLA, which is Enhanced Family Medical Leave Act. It would entitle the employees to 12 weeks of paid leave if they have leave on the books. If it extended beyond the 12 weeks, the employee would then have they have 12 weeks of protected leave. After the 12 weeks, they no longer have protected leave, but that is paid. The first 10 days, they are paid at 100% of their salary, whether they're here or not. And then after the first 10 days, it would be 2/3 of their salary.
So after the 12 weeks, though, they're going to be out on unpaid leave so that's with unprotected, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Commissioner Clemens. Let's see, Commissioner Clemens, you're still muted.
Sherry, my major concern was the State Department of Health was not involved in this decision. And I understand that Ms. Fontaine has went through, but she's not State Department of Health to look at the CDC requirements and COVID requirements by the state. So I still want to make sure that happens. But not only that, I'm really concerned in the fact that you're talking about keeping kindergartners and first graders and second graders and eighth graders. At a certain age, the state law requires kids to stay home alone. And so the only reasons those kids that are able to stay home alone at that age would be in that facilities is if they may be special needs children, which imposes a whole nother issue and concern. The second thing that I'm concerned about is if we're not mandating masks, there's going to be a really hard time getting kindergartners and first graders not to share food with each other, not to touch and not to touch each other without washing their hands, and how you're going to keep them social distance apart. So although the intentions are good, I just want to stress again, I don't care what type of staff you have or who you're bringing in or retired school teachers. We're not questioning their ability. This is not like summer camp was when summer camp was okay. This is a whole different time now. And although the intentions are good, the county should not get in the business of doing this. Even when the school system are way more equipped than we are, they're not even going back to school. So just really consider this. This would be really hard for me to support. because we're just not equipped to do this. We are equipped to make sure that those parents can hire somebody, to pay somebody to come in, to give them rules and regulations of the law, that if their child is a certain age, to let them work half a day, to maybe bring the child to work and let the child wear the mask day. We can do some other things, but opening up a facility and keeping kids is an issue.
So, and I think I want the board to also understand, all of our recreational facilities are already open. They're open now for the public to come in and participate in activities. I think the gyms are closed where they're not allowing basketball play. But today, we have people that are at all of our recreational facilities, walking the walking paths that are there and participating in activities at the recreational facilities. So it would be, and again, I hear you, Commissioner Clemens, we will reach out to the Department of Public Health. And I assure you that if we get guidance from them saying, don't do this, we're not going to do it. I mean, I will never ignore guidance from the Department of Public Health and even recommendations. But also understand our recreational facilities are open to the public today.
Well, Sherry, just because we're open don't mean that we're providing the proper procedures to mitigate risk of people getting COVID-19. So that's not a good excuse just because we're already open. And then not only that, we've got to look at if the Department of CDC has said masks should be mandated. The CDC has said everybody should wear a mask and social distance. But in your plan, you guys said masks would be encouraged. So we're going against the CDC. So just from that sentence alone is really what got me over the edge. We're not even following the CDC guidelines, which is masks are mandated.
And I hear you. And I would say we require masks in all of our county facilities. It is, and we have said when we initially sent out the request, just asking staff members their thoughts on the virtual learning, one of the things that was put in the email to staff was, if you have little ones like kindergartners, first graders at home that have not been wearing masks, go ahead and start getting them trained on wearing a mask, because we are highly, highly recommending that you have a mask. You can see tonight, I keep pulling my mask off because we're in a room, we're 6 feet apart, and we're trying to keep our mask on. I'll say this also, and I'll stand against any other department. Henry County Facility Maintenance has done an exceptional job getting this building ready and all other facilities. For those that have frequented our building recently, we even have a machine out front that's scanning the public that's coming in. The Board of Commissioners, we've installed plexiglass. And I will tell you, as far as I know, we don't have an influx, at least of COVID positive cases that have been here in this administration building. I know we mentioned public safety last week. PD confirmed they've had 4 positive cases. But Commissioner Clemens, we are doing everything in our powers to make sure that we are creating an environment that is COVID safe. Now, what people do outside of the 4 walls here, we can't control. But we're going to make sure that we put every measure in place to not only protect those people that are coming in, but to protect the staff that's working there as well. I'm no good to you if I'm not here. Staff's no good to you if they're not here. But we have done everything that we feel is definitely within our powers. Now, I can't.
Sherry, I was talking.
Okay, wait a minute. Excuse me, Miss. The county manager is still speaking. You still have the floor. The county manager still has the floor. So please finish your comment, and then we'll come to Commissioner Clemens. Go ahead and finish. Please finish, Miss Matthews.
Okay,
I'll
sit there, Chairwood. Okay, Chairwood, I'm not even sure what my final comment was, so I'll end it there.
Okay, thank you. Now, Commissioner Clemens.
Sherry, thank you for what you guys are doing at the county building is what I was saying. But I was just speaking about Parks and Rec. Yeah.
Okay, well, we've had a good conversation. I'll call for question now. We've heard the resolution presentation. So at this time, we'll now open the floor for a motion. Again, at this time, we'll open the floor for a motion. Okay, seeing none, there is no motion or action by this board regarding that resolution. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So at this time, we will open it up for any comments by commissioners, and I hear Commissioner Thomas. Come forward, Ms. Thomas.
Madam Chair, I would like for the Board of Commissioners to consider placing in action the ability to have support vouchers for our employees to go to facilities that specialize in childcare, and we help them in that manner. So I would like to put forth the motion that we have our finance department and our administrative department determine what a voucher system should look like and bring that back before the Board of Commissioners at the next meeting to consider. And that way, each parent can choose where they want their child to go based upon their own observations, their own determining their facilities where they feel safe with their child. And then we determine what that voucher would be to support that. That be $100 a week, would that be $50 a week, or $75 a week? So I would love for the administration to consider a voucher system to support our employees of childcare, but we not be in the childcare business, and bring that back to us for the next Board of Commissioner meetings to consider.
Okay, so we've heard that. You want to make that a motion, Commissioner Thomas, that you just stated?
Yes, I'd like to make that a motion.
Okay, and the motion is to definitely consider employee vouchers, to bring it back to the board for final approval at the next meeting. Okay, I think I saw Commissioner Holmes. Is that a second, Commissioner Holmes? Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Commissioner Wilson.
So we're wanting to provide vouchers to employees to take their children to a place that we just talked about that we could provide, and all those issues that could be in a county facility, those issues are going to be in the same facility. So we're going to not take them to a facility that the county wants to provide. Now we want to put these same kids in another facility that may have the same issues. So if we're going to do that, we might as well back up and put them in the county facility that we can control. I don't see giving them vouchers to put them in an environment that we don't have any control of. But that's all my comments.
Okay, and my comments are, I do like the idea of the staff do bring back a recommendation that would allow the employees to have some kind of consideration for childcare assistance, and it comes back to the board for consideration. That also would minimize liability to the county. So I have no problems with the motion, especially if it's going to come back. Okay, I think I saw Commissioner Clemens, and then we'll come to Commissioner Thomas. Commissioner Clemens.
I would like to have staff to do an internal survey of how many parents need this care. And then let's come up with how many need it, why they need it, and screen that, just like the process of giving money out to businesses. And then we can have a better idea of the need than to just say, put $1 million somewhere and there's no need for it. And I mean, not off the top of your head, and we got 3 over here, PD, and we got 10 at build, a real survey of what the need is with some information about the age of the child, why they need it, and some specifications about are they children with special needs, all these things we need to know.
We did that. We sent out a survey on, I believe, July 20th or July 26th, but that information was in the PowerPoint presentation. There are over 700 county employees with children from kindergarten to 8th grade. Of our respondents, 66%, approximately 170 kids, parents were indicating that they don't have a place for their child to go to allow that parent to work and that child to do their remote learning.
And the question
We do have a breakdown by age. Our largest categories were kindergarten and 3rd grade. I don't have the specific numbers with me, but we already have that. We also have a breakdown by their grades. We know how many are enrolled in Henry County schools. We know how many are enrolled outside of Henry County.
Okay, Commissioner Clemens.
And we would need to also know, Shannon, how long would this be for? Would this be just until school starts back? How many hours a day is it going to be? Like all of those things. So the motion.
The hours of day have been proposed from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. The time frame for how long, we don't know. We have planned for 12 weeks, but it all depends on when the schools reopen.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, Commissioner Barham, and then Commissioner, wait, I think Commissioner Thomas had her hand up first, so I apologize. Let me go to Commissioner Thomas and then Commissioner Barham. Commissioner Thomas. Okay.
I wanted to respond to some of the comments that Commissioner Wilson made. Commissioner Wilson, I simply stated, we need to let parents go to facilities that specialize in providing early education and education in general directly. Not us. We don't specialize in that. In facilities that specialize in setting up classrooms according to age groups, in facilities that specialize in having bathroom facilities. We don't have that in our recreation centers for students that are kindergarten up to 8th grade. And by having some form of voucher system, it allows the parent to make a choice where they feel their child is safe, where they have confidence that the providers are well trained, where they have an opportunity to observe whether or not everything's been sanitized properly. This is an option for them. So we can provide that. And remember, this is not money that we're just spending out of our budget. This is money that has been allowed to us through the COVID-19 monies that's coming down from the federal government, from the state. We are not in position in Henry County to provide those services. We do not have desks. We do not have things to separate them by class size. We do not have a bathroom in every classroom. And child care centers do have that. They can designate a classroom for 5th graders and designate a classroom for 3-year-olds and designate a class for infants. They have the ability to do that. We don't have that ability. I'm simply saying if we're going to decide to be a government to help with child care that's needed by employees or that's needed by our citizens, let's set it up where they can have an opportunity to participate, where they determine where they feel safe for their child to be. That should not be us because we don't have the ability to do that. I don't care what they do in these recreation centers. We've all been there. They're big open rooms. That's it. That's it. Now we end up start talking about trying to find other ways to separate the rooms, putting in petitions, buying desks, buying this, hiring people. We don't have to do that if we use the people that are here in our county. And that again adds to employment in the county. But they are prepared for this type of service. They're prepared for it. We need to allow them to do what they're prepared to do. We're not prepared for it.
Okay, I think Ms. Senyo wants to respond to Commissioner Thompson, then we'll come to you, Commissioner Wilson. Okay, I mean Commissioner Barham, I'm sorry. Ms. Senyo.
There were several points made, and I'd just like to express some response. We do have desks, we do have chairs. We have actually been coordinating with the Board of Education, and they are actually loaning us desks. Our Parks and Rec facilities are divided. We have classrooms and seminar rooms within those facilities where we can divide the kids by grades appropriately. I do understand and respect should the board choose not to or elect not to allow these programs, but we have thought through a lot of the concerns that you all are expressing. We've been in conversation with individuals to coordinate these things outside of local government. The daycares do not accommodate for this age group. Daycares are designed for 4 years old and under. Once a child turns 5 and they can enter kindergarten, they're not in daycares. After school programs accommodate kids after their school hours.
Okay, and let us keep in mind that the motion for the virtual learning center did not move forward. What we're discussing right now is the motion and the second regarding a plan of a potential voucher that would come back to the board. So that's what we're discussing right now. Just want to clarify that. Okay, Commissioner Barham, you had a comment.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I certainly support staff bringing something back to us that we could work at. It just seemed like we need to have more discussion on this matter. And, you know, our employers are in a tough way, and whatever we can do to try to assist them in this matter, I support. And but there's some questions out there, and I think we just need to have a little more conversation on it. But I would support staff bringing back something to us and see how we can move forward.
Okay, and are there any other questions and comments? We're doing the discussion part of the motion and the second regarding staff coming back to bring back the board a potential plan for childcare assistance for employees through vouchers or other options. Okay, I'm Commissioner Clemens.
I just want to encourage the staff that since we're talking about businesses, maybe this set of funds can be specifically for childcare facilities in Henry County. A lot of them that I pass by every day are shut down because the kids are not there. Parents can't pay because they don't have a job anymore. So this may be an opportunity to work with some of those licensed childcare facilities in our county that are also businesses that are struggling to stay open. So maybe this set of funds can go specifically to those childcare facilities to take care of the employees of Henry County, kids of Henry County employees. I just want to make sure you guys also look at that option.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, we received a motion and a second and discussion. All those in favor, please signal by raising your hand. Okay, okay, so I saw 1, 2, 3, 4, including myself, 4. Any opposed? Okay, 1 opposed. Okay, so thank you. Well, that motion carries. Okay, we've now come to the end of the agenda for this evening, so we'll now accept a motion to adjourn.
Move to
Okay,
approve.
I saw Commissioner Holmes up first, Commissioner Barnes second. Any discussion? All in favor, please signal by raising your hand. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you all, and thank you all for those of you who are tuning in. Thank you, staff, for your hard work, and we appreciate everyone. Have a good night.